Rain hammered the cracked pavement outside the Obsidian Lounge as Elena Vale stood frozen at the entrance, mascara already smudged, hands shaking around a wallet that held exactly $43. 3 months post-divorce. Drowning in debt her ex-husband left behind like landmines. An ER nurse who'd just finished a 16-hour trauma shift and wanted one goddamn drink to forget the man who called her worthless while emptying their bank account. Then she saw him through the glass, Garrett, her ex, laughing with some 22-year-old draped across his chest like a trophy, spending money that should have been hers. The rage that tore through Elena's chest made her push through those doors without thinking. She didn't plan on asking a stranger to make her ex jealous. She definitely didn't plan on that stranger being Lucien Vega, a man whose name made grown men go pale. One dance. That's all it took. One dance, and Elena Vale walked straight into the arms of Chicago's most dangerous crime lord. A man who never let go of anything he wanted, and he wanted her. Before we begin, hit that like button right now and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this one. The rain turned State Street into a river of neon reflections and cigarette smoke. Elena stood under the Obsidian Lounge's entrance awning, water dripping from her coat sleeves, her nurse's scrubs visible beneath the cheap blazer she'd thrown on in the hospital locker room. She shouldn't be here. Couldn't afford to be here. The cover charge alone was $30, money she needed for groceries, for gas, for the collection agency that called 4 times today about Garrett's credit card debt that somehow became hers after the divorce. But Garrett was inside. She'd seen his Instagram story 20 minutes ago while sitting in her car outside Northwestern Memorial, hands still trembling from the coding patient she'd lost in Trauma Bay 3. Garrett's face filled her phone screen, all teeth and expensive scotch, the location tag mocking her. Obsidian Lounge. Living my best life. The best life he built by stealing $40,000 from their joint account the week before their divorce finalized. Elena's thumb hovered over her phone. She could leave. Go home to her studio apartment in Pilsen, where the heat barely worked and her neighbor's bass rattled the walls until 3 a.m. Microwave something, cry in the shower, wake up tomorrow and do another shift where people bled out on gurneys while she tried to remember why she went into medicine in the first place. Or she could walk through those doors. She pushed inside before the smart part of her brain could stop her. The obsidian swallowed her whole. Purple-blue lighting carved the crowd into shadows and silhouettes, bass vibrating through the floor so hard Elena felt it in her sternum. Bodies moved like a single organism across the dance floor. The air smelled like expensive cologne, craft cocktails, and the particular desperation of people pretending money made them happy. Elena's coat dripped onto marble floors that probably cost more than her car. A hostess with perfect skin and a dress that cost 3 of Elena's paychecks glanced at her scrubs with the kind of polite disdain that said, "You don't belong here." $30 cover, the hostess said, voice flat. Elena's fingers tightened around her wallet. $30. 2 days of lunch. A tank of gas. Another call she wouldn't answer from the debt collector. She handed over the bills anyway. The hostess stamped Elena's wrist with ultraviolet ink, some kind of geometric pattern that glowed under the black lights, and gestured toward the bar with manufactured enthusiasm. "Enjoy your evening." Elena moved deeper into the crush of bodies, scanning faces in the strobing lights. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Stupid. This was so stupid. What was she even doing here? To prove something? To who? Garrett didn't give a shit about her. He'd made that clear the day he called her frigid and boring while his lawyer handed her divorce papers that somehow left her responsible for debts she didn't know existed. Then she saw him. Garrett Holloway leaned against the bar like he owned it, one hand wrapped around a rocks glass, the other resting possessively on the hip of a woman young enough to be carded. He looked good. Damn him, he looked good. Tailored navy suit, hair styled with product that cost more than Elena's weekly paycheck. That confident smile he used to give her before everything went to hell. The woman beside him laughed at something he said, tossing perfect blonde waves over one shoulder. She wore a dress that probably required professional tailoring and heels that could double as weapons. Everything Elena used to be before 12-hour shifts and crippling debt ground her down to exhaustion and dollar store face cream. Garrett caught Elena's eyes across the bar. For 1 second, just one, surprise flickered across his face. Then something worse. pity. The same look he'd given her the day she found the affair texts on his phone. The same look his lawyer wore when explaining why Elena was liable for credit cards she never opened. He turned back to the blonde, dismissing Elena like she was background noise. The humiliation hit harder than expected. Elena's throat closed. Her eyes burned. She needed to leave, needed to get out before tears came, before Garrett saw her fall apart the way she'd fallen apart in the lawyer's office when she realized he'd emptied their savings account and there was nothing, absolutely nothing, she could do about it. Rough night? The voice came from directly beside her, deep, calm. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud because people listened anyway. Elena turned. The man standing next to her didn't fit the Obsidian's aesthetic. Everyone here tried too hard. Too much cologne, too loud laughter, designer labels worn like armor against their own insecurity. This man just was. Charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elena's entire wardrobe, but worn like an afterthought. Dark hair pushed back from a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so carefully neutral. Eyes that assessed her with the kind of patience predators used before deciding whether prey was worth the effort. "I'm fine," Elena lied. His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. "You look like someone about to make a bad decision." "Already made it." Elena glanced back at Garrett, who was now whispering something in the blonde's ear. Coming here was the bad decision. "Him?" Elena nodded, throat tight. The stranger followed her gaze, then looked back at her with those unsettling, calm eyes. "Ex-husband? How'd you? You're looking at him like he took something that belonged to you." "He did." The words came out sharper than Elena intended. $40,000, 3 years of my life, and the last bit of self-respect I had left. The stranger tilted his head slightly, studying her the way doctors studied X-rays, looking for breaks beneath the surface. "And now you're here to, what? Make him jealous?" Elena's laugh came out bitter. "Pathetic, right?" "Desperate," the stranger corrected. "Not cruel, just factual." There's a difference. Something about his directness steadied her. No fake sympathy, no meaningless platitudes. Just acknowledgement that yes, she was drowning, and no, pretty words wouldn't fix it. "I'm Elena," she said. "Lucien." He extended his hand. Elena took it. His grip was firm, warm, and somehow made the chaos of the club feel distant, like stepping into the eye of a hurricane where everything went still and quiet. "Could you—" Elena stopped, the request dying in her throat, because it was insane, because he was a complete stranger, because she was 31 years old and should know better than to play high school games with her ex-husband. "Could I what?" Lucien asked. "Dance with me." Elena forced herself to meet his eyes. "Just one dance. So he sees. So he knows I moved on." "Have you?" "No." Elena's honesty surprised herself. "But he doesn't need to know that." Lucien studied her for a long moment. Something moved behind his carefully neutral expression. Not judgment, exactly. More like calculation. Like he was weighing variables in an equation Elena couldn't see. Then he extended his hand again. "One dance," Lucien said quietly, "and he'll regret losing you for the rest of his life." The promise in those words sent a shiver down Elena's spine that had nothing to do with her damp coat. This wasn't some random guy trying to get laid. This was something else. Someone else. She took his hand anyway. Lucien led her onto the dance floor with the kind of confidence that made people step aside without thinking. His palm pressed against the small of Elena's back, warm through the thin fabric of her scrubs and blazer, and suddenly they were moving. Not the grinding, graceless chaos of the crowd around them. Something older, more deliberate. Like dancing was a language Lucien spoke fluently while everyone else just shouted. "You're good at this," Elena said, hyper-aware of how close they were, how his hand guided her through turns without effort. "Practice." "You come here often?" "Never." "Then why tonight?" Lucien's dark eyes found hers. "Wrong question." "What's the right one?" "Why were you here tonight?" Lucien turned her smoothly, bringing her back against his chest, his voice low near her ear. "A woman who works, what, 16-hour shifts, saves lives, probably hasn't bought herself new clothes in months because every dollar goes to surviving. Why spend $30 you can't afford to walk into a place like this?" Elena's breath caught.
How do you,
Your hands. Lucien glanced down at where her fingers rested on his shoulder. Scrubs under the blazer. Chapped knuckles from constant hand washing. Wedding ring indent still visible on your finger even though you're not wearing it anymore. You're medical. Emergency department, probably. The good ones always look exhausted. Elena pulled back slightly, pulse jumping. That's observant. I pay attention. To random women at bars? To people who don't belong in places like this. Lucian's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. And you don't belong here, Elena. Hearing her name in his voice felt dangerous, intimate, like he'd taken something from her without asking permission. Neither do you, she managed. This time, Lucien did smile. Barely. Just a ghost of amusement that softened his features for half a heartbeat before disappearing. No, I don't. The song shifted into something slower, deeper. Lucien adjusted his hold, bringing Elena closer. She should have pulled away, should have thanked him and walked off the dance floor, driven home, forgotten this entire impulsive disaster of a night. Instead, she melted against him. Just for a moment, just to feel what it was like to be held by someone who didn't make her feel worthless. Elena. Garrett's voice cut through the music like broken glass. Elena jerked away from Lucien, heart lurching. Garrett stood 3 feet away, rocks glass in hand, jaw tight, with barely controlled anger. The blonde hovered behind him, looking between Elena and Garrett with growing unease. Garrett? Elena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Didn't expect to see you here. Bullshit. Garrett's eyes raked over her, taking in the scrubs, the damp coat, the desperation she couldn't quite hide. You followed me. I came for a drink. You came to spy on me. Garrett stepped closer, swaying slightly. Drunk. Of course he was drunk. Pathetic, Elena. Even for you. Lucian's hand settled on Elena's lower back again. Light, steady. Somehow communicating I'm here without saying a word. Garrett's attention snapped to him. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows when it's time to walk away, Lucian said quietly. I'm talking to my ex-wife. She doesn't want to talk to you. Garrett's laugh came out harsh. And you know what she wants? You just met her. I know she came here to forget you, Lucien said, voice still calm but carrying weight now, the kind of weight that made the hair on Elena's arms stand up. I know you hurt her badly enough that she's willing to pretend I matter, to make you feel a fraction of what she felt. And I know that if you were half the man you pretend to be, you'd apologize instead of insulting her in front of strangers. Silence opened up around them. The music still played, but people were watching now, sensing confrontation the way crowds always did. Garrett's face flushed dark. You don't know shit about Vega. The word came from behind Garrett. A man Elena hadn't noticed before. Broad-shouldered, early 40s, wearing a suit that screamed security or bodyguard. He stood with the kind of stillness that suggested violence lived right beneath the surface, and he was looking at Lucien with something between recognition and wariness. Sir, the man said carefully, didn't realize you were here tonight. Lucien's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air. Some unspoken communication passed between him and the security guard, and suddenly the man's attention fixed on Garrett with the focus of a targeting system locking onto a threat. Garrett went pale. Actually pale, like someone had drained the blood from his face in real time. Vega? He repeated. The bravado crumbled. As in, walk away, Lucien said softly. Take your date. Go home. Forget you saw her tonight. It wasn't a suggestion. Garrett must have heard the difference because he backed up a step, hands raised slightly, rocks glass forgotten. The blonde grabbed his arm, already pulling him toward the exit with the survival instincts of someone who recognized danger faster than her date did. Elena, Garrett started. No. Lucien didn't move, didn't raise his voice, but the single word landed like a physical barrier. You don't get to say her name anymore. Garrett left, practically fled, really, weaving through the crowd with the blonde in tow while casting nervous glances over his shoulder like he expected something terrible to follow him into the rain. Elena stood frozen, pulse hammering, brain struggling to process what just happened. What? Not here. Lucien's hand closed gently around her elbow. Come with me. I don't even know you. I know. Those dark eyes found hers again, and Elena saw something in them she couldn't name. Not cruelty, not kindness exactly. Something more complicated. But you came here to forget him. I can help with that. Your choice, Elena. Walk away now, or follow me and find out why your ex-husband just ran like I set him on fire. Every rational part of Elena's brain screamed to leave. Go home, block this man's number if he asked for it. Forget this entire night happened. But she was so tired of being rational, so exhausted from making smart choices that led nowhere except smaller apartments and mounting debt, and shifts where she watched people die because she couldn't work miracles. 1 hour, Elena heard herself say. Then I'm leaving. Lucien's mouth curved again, that ghost of a smile that suggested he knew something she didn't. 1 hour. He guided her through the crowd with that same effortless authority, people partying without him asking, like his presence alone commanded space. They moved past the bar, through a door marked private that shouldn't have opened but did when Lucien pressed his palm against it, up a narrow staircase into a hallway lined with dark wood and art that probably cost more than Elena's car. Another door. Another room. The VIP suite looked like it belonged in a penthouse, not a nightclub. Leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering chaos of State Street below. A bar stocked with bottles Elena recognized from hospital fundraisers, where the wealthy donors drank liquor worth more than her monthly salary. Lucien shrugged out of his suit jacket, draped it over a chair with casual grace. Beneath it, he wore a black dress shirt that fit like it was made specifically for his frame. Probably was. Sit, he said, moving to the bar. Drink? Elena perched on the edge of the leather sofa, hyper-aware that her scrubs were still damp, that she probably smelled like hospital disinfectant and rain. What just happened down there? Your ex recognized my name. Why? Lucien poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into cut crystal glasses. Because most people in Chicago do. He crossed the room, handed Elena one glass, kept the other. His fingers brushed hers during the exchange. Warm, steady. Elena realized her hands were shaking and gripped the glass tighter to hide it. That's not an answer, she said. It's the only one you're getting tonight. Lucien settled into the chair across from her, one ankle crossed over his knee, posture relaxed but somehow still coiled, like a wolf pretending to be a dog. Tell me about him. Garrett? The man who stole $40,000 and your self-respect. Elena's laugh came out hollow. There's not much to tell. We met in college, got married too young, grew apart, he cheated, we divorced. He cleaned out our accounts on his way out the door, and the lawyer said there was nothing I could do about it because technically the money was in a joint account. She took a sip of the whiskey. It burned beautifully going down, smooth and expensive and exactly what she needed. He called me boring, frigid, said I cared more about my patients than him. Did you? Toward the end? Elena met Lucien's eyes. Yes, because my patients appreciated what I did for them. Garrett just wanted someone to fuck and pay bills and not ask questions when he came home at 3 a.m. smelling like someone else's perfume. And the debt? Credit cards, a car lease, some kind of investment account he opened in both our names without telling me. The divorce decree said we split debts equally, and his lawyer was better than mine, so... Elena shrugged, the gesture heavy with exhaustion. So now I work overtime just to keep my head above water while he drinks $30 cocktails with girls young enough to be his daughter. Lucien sipped his whiskey, gaze never leaving her face. You're angry. I'm furious. Good. The single word surprised her. Good? Anger is useful. Lucien leaned forward slightly, forearms resting on his knees. It means you're not broken yet, just bent. I feel pretty broken. You're not. His certainty was absolute. Broken women don't spend their last $40 to walk into places like this and ask strangers to make their exes jealous. Broken women give up. You're still fighting, Elena. You're just exhausted. Something in her chest cracked open. Not a big break, just a hairline fracture in the armor she'd built around herself since the divorce. Who are you? Someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated, Lucien said quietly, and someone who doesn't like watching people get away with stealing. You said 1 hour. Elena glanced at her phone. 20 minutes had passed. What happens after that? You leave. Go home. Forget this happened. And if I don't want to forget? Lucian's eyes darkened, not with anger, with something else, something that made Elena's pulse kick despite every warning bell in her head. Then you stay, and we talk. And tomorrow morning, you go back to your life at the hospital, and I go back to mine. What's yours? Import-export, Lucian said smoothly. Shipping logistics, boring corporate work. It was a lie. Elena knew it was a lie the same way she knew when patients lied about their pain levels or drug use. The way Garrett ran from him. The way the security guard called him sir with genuine fear beneath the respect. The way he carried himself like someone who'd spent years learning how to be dangerous without ever raising his voice. She should leave. She took another sip of whiskey instead. My shift starts at 7 tomorrow, Elena said. I need to be home by midnight. Lucian checked his watch. Something elegant and minimalist that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. 2 hours. You said 1. You negotiated. That almost smile returned. I'm flexible. They talked. About everything and nothing. Elena found herself telling him about the hospital, the trauma codes that still woke her up at 3 a.m., the patients she saved and the ones she lost, the bitter satisfaction of restarting a heart that had stopped beating. Lucian listened the way most people didn't, actually listened, asking questions that suggested he understood the weight of holding someone's life in your hands. He talked too, though less, about growing up on Chicago's South Side, about clawing his way out of poverty through means he didn't specify, about the strange loneliness of building an empire when everyone either feared you or wanted something from you. Doesn't sound boring, Elena observed. I didn't say I was boring, I said the work was. Also a lie. Lucian's smile widened fractionally. Observant. I work in an ER. I'm professionally paranoid. Good trait. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from her roommate. Well, not roommate exactly. Her friend Tasha, who'd been letting Elena crash on her couch for the past month because the divorce left Elena homeless along with broke. You okay? It's 11:30. Elena typed back. Fine. Home soon. When she looked up, Lucian was watching her with that unreadable expression again. You're staying on a friend's couch. It wasn't a question. Until I can afford first and last month's rent somewhere, Elena confirmed. The apartment Garrett and I had was in his name. When we divorced, I had to leave. Everything I own fits in my car. Show me. What? Your car. Lucien stood, picked up his jacket. I want to see where you live. I don't live in my car. But you're close. He extended his hand. Show me, Elena. This was insane. She'd already stayed way longer than 1 hour, already told this dangerous stranger far more about herself than was smart. She should thank him for the drink, the dance, the minor revenge against Garrett, and walk away before this went somewhere she couldn't take back. Instead, she took his hand. They left through a private exit that bypassed the club entirely, emerging into an alley where rain still fell in sheets and a black SUV with tinted windows idled at the curb. A driver materialized from the front seat, different from the security guard inside, but with the same coiled readiness, the same suggestion that violence was just a job requirement. Mrs. Vale's car, Lucian said without preamble. Honda Civic, probably blue or gray, parked within 6 blocks of here. Find it. The driver nodded once and disappeared into the rain without question. Elena stared. How did you? Honda Civic is the most common car for someone in your demographic and income bracket. Blue or gray are standard colors. And you wouldn't park more than 6 blocks away in this neighborhood at night, even if parking was cheaper. Lucien opened the SUV's rear door. Get in. Elena climbed inside. The interior smelled like leather, and something expensive, cologne maybe, or just the particular scent of money. Lucien slid in beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched in the confined space. The driver returned 8 minutes later, keys in hand. Corner of Randolph and Wells, blue Civic, Illinois plates. Lucien took the keys, studied them. Honda keychain, a carabiner clip holding a tiny bottle of hand sanitizer and a laminated hospital badge with Elena's tired face staring back. He handed them to Elena. You're good, she said quietly. I'm thorough. Lucien turned to face her, and in the SUV's dim interior, his features looked sharper, more predatory. Elena, what I'm about to offer you, you can say no. You should probably say no, but I want you to understand something first. Her heart hammered. Okay. Your ex-husband stole from you. He humiliated you. He left you drowning while he moved on without consequences. Lucian's voice dropped lower. I can get your money back. All of it. In cash. Tomorrow. Elena's breath caught. How? By reminding Garrett that stealing has consequences. Lucian's eyes never left hers. But if I do this, if you let me do this, you step into my world, just for a moment, but enough that you'll know exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. There's no one knowing that, Elena. You understand? She should say no. Should take her keys, drive back to Tasha's couch, work her shift tomorrow, keep grinding through debt and exhaustion because that was life and life wasn't fair and powerful. Strangers didn't just fix broken things out of the kindness of their hearts. But she was so tired of being smart. Get my money back, Elena whispered. Whatever it takes. Lucian's smile was slow, dangerous, and somehow sad. Like he'd hoped she'd say no, but wasn't surprised she hadn't. Whatever it takes, he repeated. Then he leaned forward and told the driver an address Elena had never heard of, and the SUV pulled away from the curb, carrying her deeper into the rain-soaked night toward something she couldn't take back. Toward Lucian Vega's world. And toward the moment she'd realize exactly what it meant to ask a crime lord for help. The SUV cut through rain-slicked streets like a blade through water, silent except for the rhythmic thump of wipers and the low hum of the engine. Elena sat rigid in the back seat, keys digging into her palm, watching Chicago's late-night landscape blur past tinted windows. Lucien sat beside her, close enough that she felt the heat radiating from his body, far enough that the space between them felt deliberate, controlled. Where are we going? Elena asked. My home. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters right now. Lucian's eyes stayed fixed forward, his profile sharp in the passing streetlights. You asked me to get your money back. That conversation requires privacy. Elena's stomach clenched. I could have just given you Garrett's address. I already have it. The casual certainty in those 4 words made Elena's pulse spike. How? I have a lot of things, Elena. Lucian finally turned to look at her, and in the SUV's dim interior, his eyes were darker than she remembered, almost black. Addresses, phone numbers, bank accounts, employment records, the name of the woman he's been sleeping with for 6 months, not the one from tonight, by the way. A different one. Married, 2 kids. Works in his building. Elena's breath caught. You investigated him in the last 2 hours? I made a phone call. Lucian's tone suggested this was normal, obvious, like ordering takeout. My people are efficient. Your people? Yes. Import-export logistics people. Among other things, Elena laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. You're not in logistics. No, Lucian agreed quietly. I'm not. The SUV turned down a tree-lined street in Gold Coast, where old money lived behind iron gates and historical facades. Then it slowed, approached a building that didn't look like the others, more modern, all glass and steel and architectural angles designed to impress. A doorman appeared with an umbrella before the SUV fully stopped, opening Elena's door with practiced efficiency. Ms. Vale, he said, like her name was already logged in some database. Welcome. Elena stepped into the rain, legs unsteady, while Lucien circled the vehicle with fluid grace. His hand settled on her lower back again, that same gentle guidance that somehow felt like a claim, and they moved through rotating doors into a lobby that belonged in an architecture magazine. Marble floors, modern art installations, security cameras that probably cost more than Elena's car. No one stopped them. Lucien led her to a private elevator that required a key card. They rode up in silence, Elena watching floor numbers climb, 12, 15, 20, 30, until the elevator stopped at 42 and opened directly into a penthouse that stole the breath from her lungs. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River, black water reflecting city lights like scattered diamonds. The space was massive, open concept, minimalist furniture that looked expensive because it was art on the walls that Elena recognized from textbooks. Everything perfectly curated, everything controlled, and everywhere subtle signs of violence. A security panel by the door with more buttons than any home needed. Cameras in corners, discreet but visible if you knew where to look. And standing near the windows, two men in dark suits, hands folded, watching Elena with the cold assessment of people paid to identify threats. Out, Lucian said softly. The men left without a word. Elena stood frozen in the entry, coat dripping onto pristine floors, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked. Nurse's scrubs, cheap blazer, hair frizzing from rain and humidity. A woman who'd spent the last 3 months sleeping on a couch, standing in a penthouse that probably cost more per month than she'd earn in a year. Take off your coat, Lucian said, shrugging out of his suit jacket. You're soaked. Elena's fingers fumbled with buttons. The coat hit the floor with a wet slap that felt too loud in the cavernous space. Beneath it, her scrubs clung to her body, damp and wrinkled and smelling faintly of hospital disinfectant. Lucian disappeared into another room, returned with a towel and a black sweater that looked like cashmere. Bathroom's through there. Change. I'll make coffee. I don't need it. Elena. He held her gaze. You're shaking. Change. She was shaking, hands trembling, teeth wanting to chatter, adrenaline and cold and fear crashing through her system all at once. Elena took the sweater, found the bathroom, also massive, also expensive, marble and chrome, and a shower that could fit 4 people, and peeled off her damp scrubs with numb fingers. The sweater swallowed her, soft beyond description, sleeves hanging past her hands, hem hitting mid-thigh. It smelled like Lucian, something clean and dark and expensive, cedar maybe, or sandalwood. Elena caught her reflection in the mirror, smudged mascara, hair a disaster, a 31-year-old woman playing dress-up in a world she didn't understand. She should leave. She dried her hair with the towel instead, finger-combed it into something less catastrophic, and walked back into the main room. Lucien stood at the kitchen island, because of course this penthouse had a kitchen that looked like a Williams-Sonoma catalog, pouring coffee into mugs that probably cost more than Elena's weekly grocery budget. He'd rolled his shirt sleeves to his elbows, revealing forearms roped with lean muscle and a tattoo she couldn't quite make out. Something in Latin, maybe. Old script. Cream? Sugar? He asked. Black. He handed her a mug. Their fingers brushed. Elena wrapped both hands around the ceramic, letting the heat seep into her skin while Lucian studied her with that unreadable expression. Better? He asked. I look like I'm wearing my boyfriend's clothes. You look warm. Lucian sipped his own coffee, leaning back against the counter. And I'm not your boyfriend. I know. Yet you're standing in my home at midnight, wearing my sweater, about to let me do something that will change your life. His eyes never left her face. Second thoughts? Elena's grip tightened on the mug. Can you really get my money back? Yes. How? Does it matter? Yes. Lucien set down his coffee with deliberate care. Your ex-husband works at Keller and Ross. Mid-level finance position, salary around 120, bonus structure tied to quarterly performance. He's good at his job but not exceptional. Unremarkable. The kind of employee who gets promoted through attrition rather than merit. Elena's breath stilled. That was exactly Garrett. Exactly. He drives a leased BMW, Lucien continued, voice flat and factual. Lives in a condo in River North that he can't quite afford. Dates women who don't realize he's leveraged to his eyeballs. And he's terrified. Of what? Consequences. Lucian's smile was cold. Garrett stole from you because he thought there wouldn't be any. Men like him always do. They take what they want, destroy what they don't, and walk away clean because the system protects mediocre men with good lawyers. The accuracy of that assessment hit Elena like a fist. And you're going to... what? Threaten him? I'm going to remind him that actions have weight. Lucian pushed off the counter, closing the distance between them until Elena had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I'm going to visit his office tomorrow morning, alone, unarmed, and I'm going to have a conversation about ethics and restitution and the importance of correcting past mistakes. That's it? A conversation? That's all it will take. How can you be sure? Because he already knows my name, Elena. He already ran from me tonight, and by tomorrow morning, he'll have spent 12 hours Googling who I am and realizing exactly how badly he fucked up by stealing from someone I care about. The last 4 words hung in the air like smoke. Elena's pulse hammered. You don't care about me. You just met me. I care about fairness. Lucien's hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw, not quite touching. And I care that you spent the last 3 months drowning because a coward took what belonged to you. That offends me, Elena, deeply. Why? Because I grew up with nothing, Lucien said quietly, and for the first time something real flickered behind his carefully controlled expression. Something raw. I know what it's like to watch people who have everything take even more, just because they can. I know what it's like to be powerless while the world grinds you down. You're not powerless now. No. His smile returned, sharp and dangerous. I'm not. And neither are you, if you let me help. Elena should have stepped back, should have put distance between them, between his words and the heat of his body, and the promise in his eyes that felt too big, too impossible, too much like the fantasies she'd stopped letting herself have after Garrett proved fairy tales were bullshit. Instead, she leaned closer. Get my money back, Elena whispered, and then tell me who you really are. You won't like the answer. Try me. Lucien's eyes darkened further. I run this city, Elena. The parts that don't appear on maps or tax records or police reports. I own people, businesses, territories. I traffic in things the law says I shouldn't, and I've hurt people who tried to stop me. I'm the kind of man your mother warned you about, if she was smart. And if you let me into your life, even for something as simple as getting your money back, you'll see things you can't unsee. Elena's breath came shallow. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. Then be honest about this. Elena set down her coffee mug, hands steadier now. If I walk out that door right now, what happens? You go home, work your shift tomorrow, keep surviving, and eventually you'll rebuild because you're strong enough to do it alone. And if I stay, then tomorrow morning Garrett Holloway will hand you a briefcase containing $40,000 in cash and signed documents releasing you from all joint debts. You'll be free, Elena, completely free. At what cost? Knowing what I am. Lucien's hand dropped away from her face. Knowing what I'm capable of. And accepting that I don't do this out of kindness, I do it because seeing you tonight, broken and angry and still fighting, reminded me why I built this empire in the first place. To make sure people like you don't get crushed by people like him. Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Rain hammered against the windows. The city glittered below like a circuit board, and Elena stood in a borrowed sweater in a crime lord's penthouse, trying to decide if she was brave enough to take what he offered. Tomorrow morning, she said finally. I want to be there. Lucien's eyebrows rose fractionally. No, not negotiable. Elena lifted her chin. If you're going to do this, whatever this is, I'm going to see it. I'm not hiding while you fix my life. It's not safe. I work in an ER. Nothing's safe. This is different. Then explain how. Lucien exhaled slowly, something like frustration crossing his features. You're not listening. I'm listening perfectly. Elena stepped closer, closing the space he'd created. You said I'm strong. You said I'm still fighting, so stop protecting me from the truth and let me stand next to you when you get my money back. Or admit you just want me grateful and obedient, like every other man who's ever tried to help me. The words hit harder than she intended. Lucien's jaw tightened, and for a moment Elena saw something dangerous flash behind his eyes. Not anger, something colder, more calculating. You're comparing me to him, Lucien said softly. To Garrett. Should I? No. The word came out flat, final. But you don't know me well enough to understand the difference yet. Then show me. They stood inches apart, tension crackling between them like a live wire. Elena's heart hammered so hard she was sure Lucien could hear it, but she didn't back down. Couldn't, because this moment, this choice, felt like the first time in months she'd had any control over her own life, and she refused to surrender it, even to someone trying to help. Lucien's phone buzzed. He pulled it out without breaking eye contact, glanced at the screen, then typed something one-handed with the kind of speed that suggested he did this constantly. The phone disappeared back into his pocket. 10 a.m. tomorrow, he said. Keller and Ross lobby. You'll watch from a distance. You don't speak. You don't interfere. And if anything goes wrong, if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Elena nodded. Understood. Good. Lucien checked his watch. It's past midnight. You said your shift starts at 7. Yeah. My driver will take you back to your car. I can... Elena. Lucien's voice dropped lower. You're exhausted. You're running on adrenaline and coffee and probably haven't eaten since this morning. My driver will take you to your car, then follow you to make sure you get home safe. I don't need... Non-negotiable. He smiled slightly. You demanded to be there tomorrow. I'm demanding this. Fair enough. Elena nodded again, suddenly aware of how tired she actually was. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion and the surreal feeling that the last 3 hours had been some kind of fever dream. Lucien walked her to the elevator, pressed the button, stood close enough that Elena caught that cedar sandalwood scent again. The doors opened. Elena stepped inside, turned to face him. Lucien. Yes? Why are you really doing this? Elena held his gaze. And don't tell me it's about fairness. Nobody helps strangers this much without a reason. For a long moment, Lucien just looked at her. Then he reached out, fingers brushing a strand of damp hair away from her face with unexpected gentleness. Because 3 years ago, he said quietly, I watched my sister lose everything to a man who lied to her, stole from her, and left her to die in a one-room apartment with nothing but an empty bottle of pills and a note apologizing for being weak. His hand dropped. I found her too late, Elena. I couldn't save her. But I can help you, so I'm going to. The elevator doors started to close. Elena's hand shot out, stopping them. Lucien, 10 a.m., he said, stepping back. Don't be late. This time she let the doors close. The ride down felt longer than the ride up. Elena's reflection stared back at her from polished steel, hair still a mess, face pale, drowning in an expensive sweater that smelled like a man she'd known for 3 hours. A man who'd just told her he ran Chicago's Underworld. A man who'd lost his sister to the same kind of casual cruelty that destroyed Elena's marriage. A man who was getting her money back tomorrow. The driver was waiting in the lobby, umbrella ready. He didn't speak, just guided her back to the SUV and drove through empty streets to where her Civic sat lonely under a streetlight. Then he followed her, at a distance, but obviously, all the way back to Pilsen, to Tasha's building with its cracked stoop and graffitied mailboxes. Elena parked, grabbed her damp coat and scrubs from the passenger seat, and looked back at the idling SUV. The driver raised one hand in acknowledgement, then pulled away into the night. She climbed 3 flights of stairs to Tasha's apartment, let herself in with the spare key. The living room was dark except for the glow of a phone screen. Tasha sat on the couch, scrolling through Instagram, wearing pajamas and a bonnet. Girl. Tasha looked up, eyes widening. Where the hell have you been? And whose sweater is that? Elena collapsed onto the armchair, too tired to explain. Long story. You smell expensive. I met someone. Someone good or someone stupid. Elena's laugh came out hollow. I have no idea. Tasha set down her phone, attention sharpening with the focus of a friend who'd watched Elena survive the divorce firsthand. Elena, talk. So she did. Not everything. Some things felt too dangerous to say out loud, even here. But enough. The club, Garrett, the stranger named Lucien who danced with her and scared her ex and offered to get her money back with one conversation. Hell no! Tasha's voice rose. Absolutely not. You don't know this man. I know he's powerful. That's exactly why you shouldn't go near him. Tasha leaned forward, expression fierce. Powerful men don't help broke nurses out of the kindness of their hearts. They want something, and whatever he wants from you, it's going to cost more than $40,000. He lost his sister. So? Lots of people lose people. That doesn't mean you owe him anything. Elena pulled the borrowed sweater tighter around herself. He's meeting Garrett tomorrow morning. I'm going to watch. The fuck you are. Tasha. No. Tasha stood, pacing now. Listen to me. I love you. You're my best friend, but you're not thinking straight right now. This man, Lucien, whatever, he's dangerous. You know it. I know it. And you're about to walk into some shady shit because you're desperate to get back at Garrett. It's not about revenge. Yes, it is. Tasha stopped, hands on hips. It's absolutely about revenge and pain and wanting someone, anyone, to make you feel like you matter again. But Elena, baby, this is not the way. Elena's throat tightened. Then what is? Keep working doubles? Keep drowning? Keep letting Garrett win because I'm too powerless to do anything about it? You're not powerless. You're sleeping on your couch. The words exploded out of Elena, sharp and raw. I'm 31 years old, Tasha. I have a master's degree. I save lives for a living, and I can't afford a goddamn security deposit because my ex-husband stole everything and the system said that was fine. So yeah, maybe this is stupid. Maybe this is dangerous. But it's the first time in 3 months someone's looked at me and seen more than a victim. Silence filled the small living room. Tasha's expression softened, anger bleeding into concern. Elena, I'm going tomorrow, Elena said quietly. You can't stop me. I know. Tasha sighed, sinking back onto the couch. But I can tell you, you're scaring the shit out of me. And if anything happens, anything, you call me immediately. I don't care if you're in the middle of the damn meeting. You feel wrong, you run. Promise me. I promise. And maybe, Tasha hesitated, maybe text me this guy's full name, so if you disappear, I have something to give the cops? Elena's laugh cracked halfway through. Lucien Vega. Tasha pulled out her phone, typed it in, then went very still. Oh, hell no. What? Elena. Tasha turned the screen around. Google results filled it, article after article with headlines that made Elena's stomach clench. Alleged crime boss, FBI investigation, organized crime, Vega empire. Photos of Lucien in expensive suits, leaving courtrooms surrounded by lawyers. Alleged, Elena said weakly. The FBI doesn't allege shit without reasons. Tasha's voice shook. This man is not some white knight helping damsels in distress. He's a criminal. A real one. And you just spent 3 hours in his home wearing his clothes, drinking his coffee, and agreeing to meet him tomorrow so he can, what, threaten your ex? Kill him? He's not going to kill Garrett. How do you know? Elena didn't have an answer for that. Because the truth was, she didn't know. Didn't know what Lucien would do, what he was capable of, what conversation actually meant in his world. But she knew what Garrett deserved. And maybe that made her just as dangerous as Lucien. I'm going, Elena repeated. 10 a.m. Keller and Ross lobby. Tasha stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fine, but I'm calling you at 9:30, and 9:45, and 10:15. And if you don't answer, I'm calling the cops, Elena. I don't care if you're mad at me. I'm not losing you to some crime lord who thinks you're worth $40,000. He doesn't think that. Then what does he think? Elena pulled Lucien's sweater closer, remembering the way he'd looked at her when he mentioned his sister. I think he sees someone he couldn't save, and he's trying to fix it. That's not romantic, Tasha said softly. That's dangerous. Maybe. Probably. But Elena was too tired to care anymore. She slept restlessly on Tasha's couch, wrapped in Lucien's sweater, dreaming of dance floors and rain and dark eyes that saw through every defense she'd built. Her alarm went off at 5:30. She dressed in the same damp scrubs because they were all she had, returned Lucien's sweater to her backpack because leaving it felt wrong somehow. The hospital swallowed her whole the way it always did. Trauma Bay 2, gunshot wound, 23-year-old male. Elena worked on autopilot, calling for blood, checking vitals, watching the monitor while her hands moved through procedures she could do in her sleep. They lost him at 7:45. She scrubbed out, poured herself burnt coffee in the break room, and checked her phone. A text from an unknown number. Driver will pick you up at 9:30, same SUV. L. Elena's hand shook as she typed back, I can drive myself. The reply came immediately. Non-negotiable. She stared at those two words, recognizing the same tone he'd used last night. The same authority that suggested arguing was pointless because Lucien had already decided, already arranged everything, already anticipated her resistance and dismissed it. Control freak. Definitely a control freak. Elena typed, fine. Then she went to the attending physician and told him she needed to leave at 9:15 for a personal emergency. He looked at her, really looked, taking in the exhaustion and the tremor in her hands and probably the fact that she'd been working on fumes for months, and nodded without questions. "Take care of yourself, Vale," he said. She promised she would. At 9:20, Elena stood outside Northwestern Memorial's ambulance bay, still wearing scrubs because she hadn't thought to bring other clothes. The black SUV pulled up exactly at 9:30, passenger door opening before she reached it. Different driver, same coiled readiness. "Ms. Vale?" He nodded toward the interior. "Mr. Vega is waiting." Elena climbed in. Lucien sat in the back seat, dressed in a navy suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly salary, looking like he'd stepped out of a boardroom rather than orchestrated whatever was about to happen. His eyes tracked over her, scrubs, tired face, hair pulled back in a messy bun, and something softened in his expression. "You worked this morning," he said. Not a question. "Lost a patient." "I'm sorry." "Me too." Elena buckled her seatbelt, hyper-aware of the small space between them. "Where's Garrett?" "His office. He arrived at 8:15, 40 minutes earlier than usual. He's been there since, probably researching me." Lucian's mouth curved slightly. "By now, he knows exactly who I am, and exactly how badly he fucked up." The SUV pulled into traffic, heading toward the loop. Elena watched Chicago roll past the windows, trying to calm her racing pulse. "You're nervous," Lucian observed. "I'm about to watch you threaten my ex-husband." "I'm not going to threaten him." "Then what are you going to do?" "Explain his options." Lucian's tone stayed even, factual. "Garrett has two choices this morning: return what he stole voluntarily and walk away with his life intact, or refuse and discover what happens when I stop being polite. Most people choose option one. And if he doesn't, then I become significantly less pleasant." Lucien's eyes met hers. "But he will, Elena. Trust me." The SUV parked 2 blocks from Keller and Ross, a glass high-rise that stabbed into gray Chicago sky. Lucian checked his watch, 9:58, then looked at Elena. "You stay in the car," he said. "We agreed." "No, we agreed you could watch. You'll watch from here." He handed her a phone, sleek, expensive, screen already displaying a video feed. "Security camera, Keller and Ross lobby. You'll see everything." Elena took the phone, frustration warring with understanding. "How did you—" "I have access to most building security systems in Chicago." Lucien opened his door. "It's useful." He stepped out, then paused, looking back at her through the open door. Rain had started again, light mist that made the city look soft and dangerous. "Elena," Lucien said quietly, "whatever you see in the next 10 minutes, whatever I say or do, remember that I'm doing this for you. Not to you. The difference matters." Then he closed the door and walked toward Keller and Ross with the same fluid confidence he'd shown at the nightclub, like he owned every space his body occupied. Elena stared at the phone screen. The security feed showed the lobby from an elevated angle. Marble floors, modern furniture, a reception desk where a young woman sat typing. Empty except for her. Then Lucien entered the frame. Even on a grainy security feed, his presence changed the space. The receptionist looked up, smiled professionally, then did a double take when she really saw him. Lucien approached the desk, said something Elena couldn't hear. The receptionist's smile faltered. She picked up her phone, made a call, nodded several times. 2 minutes later, Garrett stepped off the elevator. Elena's breath caught. Even through the security feed, she saw the terror on his face. Garrett looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. Pale, tie loosened, suit jacket wrinkled. He approached Lucien the way someone might approach a tiger that hadn't decided whether to attack yet. They spoke. Elena couldn't hear words, but she watched body language. Lucien's posture stayed relaxed, hands in his pockets, expression neutral. Garrett kept nodding, hands gesturing defensively, sweat visible on his forehead, even from the camera angle. Then Lucien said something that made Garrett go completely still. Garrett pulled out his phone with shaking hands, made a call, spoke rapidly into it. Then he turned back to Lucien and nodded once, sharp and desperate. The conversation lasted exactly 8 minutes. When it ended, Garrett practically fled back to the elevators, and Lucien walked out of the building like he'd just finished buying coffee instead of dismantling a man's sense of security. He slid back into the SUV, completely dry despite the mist, and took the phone from Elena's numb fingers. Done, Lucien said simply. What? Elena's voice cracked. What did you say to him? The truth. Lucien handed her a business card. Heavy stock, expensive printing, just a phone number and a name. He'll call you at noon. Meet him somewhere public. He'll have everything. Everything? 40,000 in cash, signed documents releasing you from all joint debts, and a written apology acknowledging he stole from you. Lucien's eyes found hers. You'll be free, Elena. Completely free. Elena stared at the card, hands trembling. How did you... I explained that stealing from you was equivalent to stealing from me, and that I take theft very personally. Lucien's expression stayed calm, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. I also explained what happens to people who waste my time with negotiations. Garrett is not stupid. He understood the subtext, which was that some mistakes can't be survived. The words hung in the air like a blade. Elena should have been horrified, should have demanded to know exactly what Lucien said, what threats he made, what violence he implied. But all she felt was a savage satisfaction that Garrett had finally experienced a fraction of the powerlessness he'd inflicted on her. Thank you, Elena whispered. Don't thank me yet. Lucien's hand covered hers briefly, warm and steady. Wait until you have your money. Wait until you're standing in your own apartment with your name on the lease. Then thank me. The SUV pulled back into traffic. They rode in silence back to Northwestern Memorial, Elena clutching the business card like a lifeline, Lucien watching Chicago roll past with that same unreadable expression. When they reached the hospital, Elena didn't immediately get out. She sat there processing everything that had just happened, everything that had changed in the last 12 hours. Elena. She turned to look at him. Your ex-husband will never bother you again, Lucien said quietly. I made that very clear. But if he does, if he contacts you, threatens you, even looks at you wrong, you call me. Immediately. Understood? Elena nodded. Good. Lucien reached into his jacket, pulled out a different card, this one with his name and a phone number, nothing else. Keep this. Use it if you need me. For emergencies? For anything. His eyes held hers. Anything at all, Elena. She took the card, fingers brushing his. The contact sent electricity up her arm. I should go, Elena said, not moving. Yes. My shift technically ended 30 minutes ago. You worked overnight. 12 hours, not overnight. Still long enough to be dangerous when exhausted. Lucien's mouth curved slightly. Go home. Sleep. Meet Garrett at noon somewhere public, coffee shop, restaurant, somewhere with witnesses. Get your money. And then... He hesitated, something uncertain crossing his features for the first time. And then decide if you want to see me again. Elena's pulse kicked. Why wouldn't I? Because you know what I am now. Lucien's voice dropped lower. And that knowledge changes things. Maybe you'll realize I'm too dangerous, too complicated, too far outside the life you want to build. And if that's true, if you decide this ends here, I'll understand. No pressure, no consequences. Just goodbye. The vulnerability in those words shocked her. This man who'd terrified Garrett into compliance, who ran Chicago's Underworld, who moved through the world like violence was just another tool in his arsenal. He was giving her an out, a clean break. No strings, which somehow made Elena want to stay more than anything he could have said. I'll call you, she said. After I meet Garrett, after I have my money, I'll call you and we'll talk about what happens next. Lucien's expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or something close to it. I'll answer. Elena opened the door, stepped out into the mist, then turned back. Lucien? Yes? Your sister. Elena swallowed hard. What was her name? Pain flickered across his face, gone so fast she almost missed it. Sophia. I'm sorry you lost her. Me too. Lucien held her gaze. But helping you feels like keeping a promise I made to her. So thank you for letting me. Elena nodded, unable to trust her voice, and closed the door. She watched the SUV disappear into traffic, then walked back into Northwestern Memorial on legs that barely held her weight. Tasha called at 9:45 like she'd promised. Elena answered, told her everything was fine, promised details later. Then she went to the locker room, changed out of her scrubs, and sat on the bench in her street clothes, Lucian's business card pressed between her palms. At 11:30, Garrett called. "There's a cafe on Madison," he said without preamble, voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The Corner Bakery, 1 block from my office. Be there at noon." He hung up before Elena could respond. She took the red line downtown, walked the 3 blocks to the Corner Bakery through misting rain, and found Garrett already there. He sat at a corner table, briefcase at his feet, looking like he hadn't slept. When he saw Elena, his face went even paler. "Sit," Garrett said. Elena sat. He pushed the briefcase across the table. "It's all there. 40,000. Cash, hundreds and fifties mostly. And these." He handed her a manila folder. Signed releases for every joint debt, credit cards, car lease, the investment account, everything. "You're clear." Elena opened the folder with shaking hands. Legal documents, each one stamped and notarized, each one releasing her from debts that had been drowning her for months. Her vision blurred. "The money's real?" she managed. "Count it if you want." Elena unzipped the briefcase. Stacks of bills, neatly bundled, more cash than she'd seen in her life. She didn't count it, didn't need to. She could see Garrett's terror, smell it on him like sweat and desperation. "There's one more thing," Garrett said. He slid a handwritten letter across the table. "An apology. He said you'd want one." Elena picked up the letter. Garrett's handwriting, shaky and rushed, acknowledging what he'd stolen, admitting it was wrong, apologizing for the pain he'd caused. The words she'd wanted for months. They meant nothing now. "Who is he?" Garrett asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Who the fuck is he, Elena?" "Someone you shouldn't have crossed." "I didn't know, you knew you stole from me." Elena's voice came out cold, hard. "You knew you destroyed my life. You just didn't think there would be consequences." "He said," Garrett stopped, Adam's apple bobbing. "He said if I ever contacted you again, if I even thought about you," his voice cracked. "Elena, I'm leaving Chicago. Next month. New job. Different city. You'll never see me again." Good. Perfect. Exactly what she wanted. So why did it feel hollow? Elena stood, grabbed the briefcase and folder, and looked down at the man who'd once promised to love her forever. He looked small, pathetic. Nothing like the confident asshole who'd called her worthless 3 months ago. "Goodbye, Garrett," she said. She walked out of the corner bakery without looking back. The briefcase weighed heavy in her hand, $40,000 in cash. Freedom she'd stopped believing possible. Elena stood on Madison Street in the mist, people flowing around her like water around a stone, and pulled out her phone. She dialed the number on Lucien's card. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." "I have it," she said. "All of it." "Good." Relief colored his voice. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." Elena's laugh came out shaky. "I have $40,000 in cash, Lucian, just sitting in a briefcase on a street corner. What do I do with this?" "Do you have a bank account Garrett doesn't know about?" "No." "Then we'll open one, today. I'll have my accountant meet you." "No." Elena cut him off. "No more favors, no more help. I need to do this part myself." Silence. Then, "Understood. But Elena stopped, trying to find words for what she felt. "I want to see you again. Is that insane?" "Probably." Lucien's voice softened. "But I want to see you too." "Dinner?" "When?" "Tonight." The words came out before Elena could second-guess them. "I know it's fast. I know it's probably stupid, but I just got my life back, and I want to celebrate with the person who made it possible." "Elena," Lucien's voice carried a warning. "If we do this, if we start this, it gets complicated fast. I'm not a normal man with a normal life. Being close to me comes with risks you haven't fully grasped yet." "I know?" "No, you don't." He exhaled slowly. "But if you're sure, if you really want this, then yes. Dinner, tonight. I'll send a car at 7. I can meet you, Elena." That same firm tone. Let me do this, please. She smiled despite everything. Okay. 7. Wear something comfortable. We're not going anywhere fancy. The call ended. Elena stood on Madison Street, briefcase full of cash, business card in her pocket, and the strangest feeling blooming in her chest. Hope. For the first time in 3 months, maybe longer, Elena felt like her life was her own again. And Lucien Vega, Chicago's most dangerous crime lord, was the man who'd given it back to her. That should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something she couldn't name yet, something inevitable, something that would change everything. Elena spent the afternoon opening a new bank account at a branch where nobody knew her name, depositing $38,000 while keeping $2,000 in cash because some part of her brain still couldn't believe the money was real. The bank manager looked at the stacks of hundreds with barely concealed suspicion, but Elena had her legal documents, had Garrett's signed confession, and most importantly, had the kind of exhausted confidence that came from finally winning after months of losing. She left the bank feeling lighter than air. By 4 o'clock, she was standing in a Target trying to find something to wear that didn't scream "broke ER nurse" or "trying too hard." She settled on dark jeans that actually fit, a simple black sweater that looked expensive even though it wasn't, and boots that added 2 inches to her height. Not fancy, just better than scrubs. Tasha called while Elena was paying. "So you're really doing this," Tasha said, no preamble. "Dinner, that's all, with a crime lord." Alleged crime lord. "Elena." Tasha's voice carried the weight of 12 years of friendship. "You got your money back. You're free. Why are you diving deeper into this man's world?" Elena loaded bags into her Civic's trunk, phone tucked against her shoulder. "Because he sees me, Tasha. Not the broke version. Not the nurse. Not Garrett's leftovers. He sees me. Or he sees someone vulnerable he can control." The words hit harder than intended. Elena stopped, one hand on the car door, Chicago traffic roaring past. "You really think that?" Silence stretched between them. Then, "I think powerful men don't do favors without expecting something back. And I think you're so desperate to feel valued that you're not asking what he wants." "He wants dinner. Tonight he wants dinner. Tomorrow he wants something else. Next week, something bigger." Tasha's voice softened. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to protect you." "I know." Elena climbed into her car, suddenly exhausted again. "But I need to do this. I need to see where this goes." "Then promise me something." "What?" "If it feels wrong, even for a second, you leave. No explanations, no apologies. You just leave. I promise." But even as Elena said the words, some part of her knew she was lying. She drove back to Tasha's apartment, showered until her skin turned pink, dried her hair until it fell in waves instead of frizz, and dressed in her new clothes that still had the tags tucked inside. The woman in the mirror looked different, still tired, still carrying shadows under her eyes, but alive, present, like someone who'd stopped surviving and started living. The black SUV arrived at 6:55, different driver again. Elena was starting to think Lucien had an entire fleet of silent, dangerous men at his disposal. She climbed into the back seat, pulse already racing, and found it empty except for a single white box tied with black ribbon. Elena opened it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, lay a dress. Deep emerald silk that caught the light like water. Simple cut, no labels, but the kind of quality that whispered money even without logos. And beneath it, a handwritten note in masculine script. "You said comfortable. This is my version." L. Elena's hands trembled as she lifted the dress. It was beautiful, perfect, probably cost more than her car payment. And somehow, Lucien had guessed her size exactly. She looked up at the driver. "Where are we going?" "Mr. Vega's home, ma'am." His home. Not a restaurant. Not somewhere public with witnesses and escape routes. His private space where nobody would see her, nobody would know, nobody would hear her scream if things went wrong. Elena should have told the driver to turn around. Instead, she pulled out her phone and texted Tasha. "Going to his place. We'll check in every hour." Tasha's response came immediately. "Elena, no." Elena typed, "Already decided," and put her phone on silent. The drive took 30 minutes through rush hour traffic, giving Elena too much time to think. about Lucian's hands guiding her across a dance floor, about the cold way he'd dismissed Garrett's existence, about his sister Sophia, who died alone with an empty pill bottle because some man had destroyed her the way Garrett tried to destroy Elena, about the way Lucien looked at her like she was something rare and breakable and worth protecting. The SUV pulled up to the same building as last night, same doorman, same private elevator that opened directly into the penthouse. But this time, music drifted through the space. Something jazz, instrumental, the kind of sophisticated background noise wealthy people use to prove they had taste. Lucien stood at the windows overlooking the river, dressed in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look younger somehow, less like a crime lord, more like a man who was nervous about a dinner date. He turned when Elena entered and something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, more like recognition. "You wore the dress," he said. "You knew I would. I hoped." Lucien crossed the space between them, and Elena realized she was still holding the white box. He took it from her hands, set it aside, then studied her with that same unreadable intensity. "You look beautiful. You look nervous." This time he did smile, brief and genuine. "Perceptive. I'm professionally paranoid, remember? Then you've already assessed all the exits, estimated response times if you needed help, and calculated whether you could take me in a fight." Elena's pulse kicked. "Could I?" "No." Lucien's honesty was brutal. "But I respect that you're thinking about it." The music shifted into something slower. Lucien gestured toward the kitchen where the island had been set with 2 place settings, wine glasses, and covered dishes that smelled incredible. "I cooked," he said. "Well, I reheated. My chef prepared everything this afternoon, but I handled the final presentation." "You have a chef." "I have several people who make my life functional." Lucien pulled out a chair for her. "Sit, eat, and then we'll talk about why you're really here." Elena sat, hyper-aware of how the silk dress moved against her skin, how Lucien's presence filled the space even when he wasn't touching her. He uncovered dishes, roasted chicken, asparagus, some kind of grain Elena didn't recognize but tasted like butter and herbs in heaven. The wine was red, expensive, and went down too easy. They ate in strange silence for several minutes, not uncomfortable, just waited, like both of them were waiting for something to break. Finally, Elena set down her fork. "You said it gets complicated." "It does." "Explain." Lucien finished his wine, poured more for both of them. 3 months ago, a shipment of mine was intercepted by federal agents. $2 million in product, gone. 4 of my people arrested, and the only way the FBI knew about that shipment was if someone inside my organization talked. Elena's stomach tightened. "Someone betrayed you, yes?" Lucien's voice stayed level, but something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. "I've spent the last 90 days identifying the leak, narrowing down possibilities, eliminating threats." "Eliminating? I don't mean killing." Lucien met her gaze. "I mean removing people from positions where they can cause damage, reassigning them, watching them, waiting for them to reveal themselves." "And have they?" "Not yet." Lucien leaned back, studying her. "But this kind of investigation requires patience, strategy, and absolute trust in the people closest to me." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if we do this, if we keep seeing each other, you'll become one of those people, someone close to me, someone enemies might target to hurt me." His expression hardened. "And I need you to understand that risk before you decide whether this is worth it." Elena's throat tightened. "You think someone would hurt me to get to you?" "I know they would." Lucien's certainty was absolute. "It's already happened. 6 months ago, my accountant's daughter was kidnapped, held for 3 days. They sent him her finger with a note demanding I release territory I'd claimed from a rival organization." The casual brutality of those words made Elena's hand shake. "What did you do?" "I found her, brought her home, and made sure the men who took her understood that touching civilians, especially children, was a line you don't cross in my world." Lucien's voice dropped lower. "Then I handled the territorial dispute differently." "How?" "Violently." The single word hung between them. Elena should have been horrified. Should have stood up, walked out, called Tasha, and admitted this was a mistake. But all she felt was a dark satisfaction that Lucien had rescued that girl, that he'd made her kidnappers pay, that he'd drawn a line between acceptable violence and unconscionable cruelty. What did that say about her? Elena. Lucien reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you leave this room if you knew details. But I'm honest about what I am. And what I am is someone who protects what's mine with everything I have. I'm not yours. Not yet. His thumb traced circles on her palm. But I want you to be. And that terrifies me because wanting something, wanting someone, makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability in my world is fatal. Elena's breath came shallow. Then why risk it? Because you walked into that club looking like your world had ended, and instead of giving up, you asked a stranger to help you fight back. Lucian's grip tightened fractionally. Because you work yourself to exhaustion saving lives, and you still found the strength to demand I let you watch when I confronted Garrett. Because you're brave and broken and stubborn, and I can't stop thinking about you. The confession landed like a physical touch. Elena's pulse hammered in her throat. I can't stop thinking about you either, she admitted, and that scares me more than anything you've told me tonight. Good. Lucian stood, pulling her up with him. Fear means you're paying attention. They moved to the living room, to the leather couch where Elena had sat last night drinking expensive whiskey. This time, Lucien sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched, far enough that she didn't feel trapped. Tell me about Sophia, Elena said quietly. Pain flickered across Lucian's face. Why? Because she's why you helped me, and I want to understand. For a long moment, Lucien just looked at her. Then he exhaled slowly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. She was 3 years younger than me. Brilliant. Full of light. The kind of person who made rooms brighter just by existing. Lucian's hands clenched on his knees. She met a man when she was 26. Marco. Charming. Successful. Everything she thought she wanted. I didn't trust him. Something felt wrong. But she loved him, and I wanted her to be happy. What happened? Marco isolated her, slowly. Convinced her I was controlling, that her friends were toxic, that she needed to quit her job and depend on him financially. By the time Sophia realized what he'd done, she had nothing. No money, no support system. Just him. Elena's chest tightened, recognizing the pattern. Garrett had tried the same thing, though he'd been less successful because Elena's work was too important to abandon. She tried to leave him, Lucien continued, 3 times. Each time Marco found her, dragged her back. And I didn't know. She stopped calling, stopped answering my messages, and I thought she was just busy with her new life. His voice cracked. I should have known better. Should have checked on her. But I was building my empire, focused on expanding territory and consolidating power, and I let her disappear from my life because it was convenient. Lucienne. She died alone in a studio apartment Marco had rented for her after he finally left. Pills and vodka and a note apologizing for being weak. Lucian's eyes met Elena's, and for the first time she saw real vulnerability there, raw and bleeding. I found her 2 days later. Too late to save her. Too late to tell her she wasn't weak, that Marco was the monster, that I should have protected her better. Elena's throat closed. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be careful. Lucian's hand found hers again, grip almost painful. Be careful with men who offer to fix your life. Be careful with promises that sound too good. And be careful with me, Elena, because I might want to help you, but I'm still dangerous. Still capable of hurting you even when I'm trying to protect you. I know. Do you? Lucian pulled her closer, close enough that Elena felt his breath against her temple. Because right now, sitting here with you, all I can think about is how easy it would be to make you depend on me. To pay your bills, solve your problems, give you everything you need until you forget how to survive without me. And part of me wants that. Wants you tied to me so completely that leaving becomes impossible. Elena's pulse thundered. And the other part, knows you'd hate me for it eventually. Lucian's laugh came out bitter. Knows that real love, if that's what this becomes, requires letting you be strong on your own. Even when every instinct I have says to lock you in this penthouse and make sure nothing ever hurts you again. The confession should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt something warm unfold in her chest. Because Lucien was right. She would have hated being caged, even in a gilded penthouse with a man who meant well. But he saw that, understood it, and was fighting his own controlling instincts because he wanted her whole, not broken into something manageable. I got my money back today, Elena said. My debts are cleared. My life is mine again. And I came here tonight knowing exactly what you are, Lucian, not because I need you to save me, but because I want to see where this goes when we're both choosing it freely. Lucien's eyes darkened. Elena. The penthouse door crashed open. Elena jerked back, heart lurching, as three men in tactical gear poured through the entrance with weapons drawn. Not police. No badges. No announcements. Just cold efficiency and the kind of violence that didn't need to identify itself. Lucian moved before Elena could scream. He shoved her behind the couch, body covering hers, one hand reaching for something under the coffee table. A gun materialized in his grip, compact, black, lethal. Stay down, he commanded. Elena pressed herself against the floor, pulse screaming, while gunfire exploded through the penthouse. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Lucien returned fire with surgical precision, his movements fluid and terrifyingly competent, like this was just another Tuesday for him. One attacker dropped, then another. The third one got close, too close, knife flashing in low light. Lucien caught the blade with his forearm, the weapon slicing through fabric and skin, then drove his gun into the man's throat hard enough to crush cartilage. The attacker went down choking. Silence fell like a hammer. Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Blood soaked through Lucian's sweater, his blood from the knife wound, and three bodies lay scattered across his pristine floor like discarded puppets. Elena. Lucien's voice cut through her shock. Look at me. She dragged her eyes up. He crouched beside her, gun still in hand, blood dripping down his arm, expression absolutely calm despite the carnage around them. Are you hurt? He asked. Elena shook her head, unable to form words. Good. Lucian stood, pulled out his phone with his uninjured hand, and made a call. We have a situation. 3 hostiles, dead. Send cleanup and medical. 5 minutes. He hung up. 5 minutes. Like this was routine. Like men breaking into his home and trying to kill him was just part of the job. Elena pushed herself up on shaking legs. What the fuck just happened? Someone sent a message. Lucian grimaced, pressing his injured arm against his side. Not a very subtle one. A message? They tried to kill you. Kill me, kidnap you, send a statement. Lucian moved to the window, scanning the street below with professional paranoia. Doesn't matter, they failed. You're bleeding. I've bled before. Elena's nurse instincts kicked in despite the shock. She crossed to him, grabbed his arm, pushed up the blood-soaked sleeve. The knife wound was deep, clean, would need stitches. You need a hospital. I have a doctor on retainer. Of course you do. Elena laughed, the sound edging toward hysterical. Of course you have a private doctor for when people try to murder you in your home. Elena, you said it was complicated. Her voice rose despite herself. You said there were risks. You didn't say armed men would break into your home during dinner and try to kill us both. I said enemies might target you to hurt me. Lucian's calm was infuriating. This proves my point. This proves you're insane. Elena backed away, heart hammering. This is insane. I can't do this. The penthouse door opened again. More men, these ones familiar. Lucian's security team moving with coordinated efficiency. They assessed the bodies, spoke in low voices, and began the grim work of cleanup like this was choreographed. One of them approached Lucien. Sir, we need to move you. I'm fine here. Sir, I said I'm fine. Lucian's voice hardened. Secure the building. Find out how they breached security. And get me the name of whoever sent them. Yes, sir. The security team scattered. Elena watched them work, watched them wrap bodies in plastic, watched them clean blood off marble floors with industrial efficiency, and felt her grip on reality starting to slip. This was not her world. This would never be her world. Elena. Lucian stepped closer, careful not to touch her. Breathe. I need to leave. Not yet. Not until we know it's safe. Safe? Elena's laugh came out sharp. Nothing about this is safe. Nothing about you is safe. I know. Lucian's expression finally cracked, showing something raw beneath. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't let you leave until my people secure the perimeter. If whoever sent those men is still watching, if they followed you here, they might target you next. The words made Elena's knees weak. Why would they target me? Because you're here. Because you matter to me. Because hurting you would hurt me. Lucien exhaled slowly. Because that's how this world works, Elena. You find someone's weakness and you exploit it until they break. Then let me go. Elena's voice cracked. Let me walk away before I become a weakness you can't afford. It's too late. Lucien's honesty was brutal. The moment you walked out of that nightclub with me, the moment my people saw us together, the moment I confronted Garrett in public, it was too late. You're already connected to me, already a target. Walking away now doesn't change that. Horror crawled up Elena's spine. You're saying I'm trapped. I'm saying I'll protect you. Lucien stepped closer. I'm saying I should have been more careful, should have kept you at arm's length, but I'm selfish and I wanted you anyway, and now we deal with the consequences. By hiding in your penthouse while people try to kill us? By finding who sent them and making sure they never try again. A man in a suit appeared at Lucien's shoulder, older, graying, carrying a medical bag. Sir, your arm. Lucien glanced at Elena, something asking in his expression. She nodded, numb, and followed them to the kitchen where the doctor laid out supplies with practiced efficiency. Elena watched him work, watched him clean the wound, inject local anesthetic, stitch the gash with neat precision while Lucien sat perfectly still, jaw tight but otherwise showing no pain. The control was inhuman, terrifying. 20 stitches, the doctor said finally. Keep it dry. Change the dressing daily. I'll be back tomorrow to check for infection. Thank you, Marcus. The doctor left. Elena and Lucien sat in silence while security continued working in the main room, the sounds of cleanup drifting through the space like white noise. I want to see my phone, Elena said. Lucien nodded toward her purse on the counter. Elena grabbed it, pulled out her phone. 7 missed calls from Tasha, 12 texts, each one more frantic than the last. The most recent. If you don't answer in 5 minutes, I'm calling the cops. Elena typed back. I'm okay. Long story. Staying here tonight. Tasha's response was immediate. The fuck you are. Then, I'm coming to get you. Send address. Elena looked at Lucien. My friend wants to pick me up. Tell her no. She won't accept that. Then tell her the truth. Lucien's expression was unreadable. Tell her men tried to kill us tonight, and it's not safe for her to come here, and you're staying until my people confirm the threat is contained. Elena stared at him, then typed, Can't leave yet. Not safe. We'll explain tomorrow. I promise I'm okay. A long pause. Then, if you're not at my place by noon tomorrow, I'm filing a missing persons report. Elena sent back a thumbs up, then silenced her phone. She's persistent, Lucien observed. She's terrified for me. For good reason. Elena set down her phone, suddenly exhausted. What happens now? Now we wait for my people to tell me who sent those men. Then we respond. Respond how? Lucien's smile was cold. Decisively. Elena wanted to press for details, wanted to know exactly what decisively meant in Lucien Vega's world. But she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too aware that she'd stepped across a line tonight that couldn't be uncrossed. I need to sleep, she said. Guest room, second door on the left. Lucien stood, moving carefully around his stitched arm. I'll stay up, monitor the situation. You'll be safe. Elena walked to the guest room in a daze. It was as immaculate as the rest of the penthouse. King bed, luxury linens, attached bathroom with heated floors. She stripped off the emerald dress, left it draped over a chair, and crawled under covers that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She expected to lie awake all night, replaying gunfire and blood, and the cold efficiency with which Lucien had killed 3 men. Instead, she passed out within minutes, exhausted beyond fear. When she woke, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Elena checked her phone, 8:15 in the morning. She'd slept nearly 10 hours. The penthouse was quiet, too quiet. Elena found her clothes from yesterday, the jeans and sweater she'd bought at Target, and dressed quickly. Then she walked into the main living space. It looked perfect. No blood, no bodies, no sign that anything violent had happened except for a new sheet of plywood covering one of the shattered windows. Lucian sat at the kitchen island with coffee and a laptop, dressed in fresh clothes, injured arm bandaged, but otherwise looking completely normal. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning." Elena poured herself coffee, hands steadier now. "Did you sleep?" "No." "Did you find them? The people who sent those men?" "Yes." Lucian finally looked at her, and Elena saw exhaustion carved into his features. "It was the leak. The person inside my organization who's been feeding information to the FBI. They hired those men to kill me before I could identify them." Elena's stomach dropped. "Who is it?" Lucian's expression hardened. "My cousin, Marcus. I've trusted him for 15 years, brought him into the organization when he had nothing, gave him territory, authority, a percentage of profits, and he's been selling me out for the last 6 months in exchange for immunity from prosecution." The betrayal in Lucian's voice was worse than the anger. This wasn't just business. This was family. "What are you going to do?" Elena asked quietly. "What I always do." Lucian closed his laptop. "Handle it." "Handle it how?" "Elena." Lucian stood, crossed to where she leaned against the counter. "You don't want to know the answer to that question." "Yes, I do." "No, you don't." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Because once I tell you, once you know exactly what I'm capable of, when someone betrays me, you'll never look at me the same way again." Elena's pulse hammered. "Try me." Lucian held her gaze for a long moment. Then he dropped his hand, stepped back, and said in a voice devoid of emotion, "I'm going to call a meeting, gather my people, present evidence of Marcus's betrayal, and then I'm going to give him a choice. Leave Chicago tonight with nothing but his life, or refuse and discover what happens to traitors in my world. And if he chooses wrong, then I make an example that ensures nobody else ever makes the same mistake." The implications hung between them. Elena wanted to ask what kind of example, wanted details, wanted to understand exactly how far Lucian would go. But some part of her, the part that watched him kill 3 men without hesitation last night, already knew. "I need to go," Elena said. "Tasha's expecting me." "I'll have my driver." No." Elena cut him off. "No more drivers. No more protection. I need to think, Lucian, about last night, about what being with you actually means, and I can't do that surrounded by your people." Pain flickered across his face. "You're leaving." "I'm thinking." "That's the same thing." "Maybe." Elena grabbed her purse, checked for her keys. "But I need space to figure out if I'm brave enough for your world, or if last night proved I'm not." Lucian didn't argue, didn't try to convince her to stay. He just nodded once, expression carefully neutral, and said, "If you need me, for any reason, call. I'll answer." "I know." Elena walked to the private elevator, pressed the button, and looked back at him one last time. Lucian stood in his pristine penthouse with his bandaged arm and his exhausted eyes, and the weight of betrayal crushing him, and Elena felt something crack in her chest. She should stay. She would help him through this. Should prove she was strong enough to stand beside him, even when his world was violent and complicated and terrifying. Instead, she stepped into the elevator and rode down 42 floors to street level. Her Civic was still parked 2 blocks away. Nobody had touched it, nobody had followed her, and Elena drove through morning traffic back to Pilsen feeling like she'd aged a decade overnight. Tasha opened the door before Elena could knock, pulled her inside, and immediately started checking for injuries. "I'm fine," Elena said. "Bullshit." Tasha's hands shook. "You were gone all night. You didn't answer your phone. And now you look like you've seen a ghost. Men broke into his penthouse last night." The words came out flat, emotionless. 3 of them, with guns. They tried to kill us. Lucian, her voice cracked. Lucian killed them all. Just handled it like it was routine, like people trying to murder him was just another Tuesday. Tasha went pale. "Oh my God." And then his security team showed up and cleaned everything up. And now I don't know if any of it actually happened or if I dreamed the whole thing. Elena laughed, the sound unhinged. "Except I woke up in his guest room this morning and he told me it was his cousin. His own family betrayed him, tried to have him killed, and now he's going to handle it, and I don't want to know what that means." "Elena," Tasha gripped her shoulders. "You need to walk away. Right now. before this gets worse. It's already worse. Elena pulled away, pacing the small living room. He said I'm already a target. That walking away doesn't change that, because people saw us together, because I'm connected to him now, whether I want to be or not. Then we go to the police. And tell them what? That a crime lord got my money back and now his enemies might hurt me? They'll laugh us out of the station. Then we leave Chicago. Tasha's voice rose. Pack up, move somewhere else, start over. Elena stopped pacing. You do that? Uproot your entire life because I made bad choices? You're my best friend. Tasha's eyes welled up. Of course I would. The offer broke something in Elena. She sank onto the couch, face in her hands, and started crying. Not pretty tears. Ugly, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken and exhausted. Tasha held her, didn't say anything, just let Elena fall apart the way she'd needed to fall apart. For months, but couldn't because she'd been too busy surviving. When the tears finally stopped, Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number, text message. Elena opened it with shaking hands. A photo filled the screen. Her. Walking into Lucien's building last night, wearing the emerald dress. Unmistakable. Below it a message. Pretty nurse. Shame if something happened to her. Tell your boyfriend the price just went up. Elena's blood turned to ice. Another text arrived. Ignore this and we visit your friend, the one with the cute apartment in Pilsen. Tasha, right? Elena's hands went numb. The phone clattered to the floor. Tasha picked it up, read the messages, and went white. What the fuck? Elena was already dialing Lucian's number. He answered on the first ring. Elena, someone just threatened Tasha. Elena's voice shook. They have photos of me. They know where she lives. They know her name. Silence. Then, ice cold and absolutely lethal. Send me the messages, right now, and don't leave the apartment. I'm sending people. Lucien. Trust me, Elena. One more time. Trust me to fix this. Elena sent the screenshots, then sat on Tasha's couch, with her friend's hand gripping hers, waiting for whatever came next, and realized with perfect, terrifying clarity that there was no walking away anymore. Not from Lucien, not from his world, not from the violence that came with loving a man who ruled an empire built on blood and loyalty and ruthless devotion to protecting what was his. She'd asked him for help getting her money back. Now she was paying the price. And the cost was going to be higher than she'd ever imagined. 20 minutes. That's how long it took for Lucien's people to arrive. Elena and Tasha sat frozen on the couch, neither speaking, both staring at Elena's phone like it might explode. Every car that passed outside made them flinch. Every footstep in the hallway sent adrenaline spiking through Elena's system until her hands shook and her vision narrowed to a tunnel. When the knock came, 3 sharp raps. Controlled and deliberate, Elena nearly screamed. Ms. Vale, a voice from the other side. Male, calm. Mr. Vega sent us. Elena opened the door to find 4 men in dark suits, all carrying the same coiled readiness she'd seen in Lucian's security team. The one in front was older, maybe 45, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow and eyes that had seen too much violence to be shocked by anything anymore. I'm Davis, he said. We're here to secure the premises and escort you both to a safe location. We're not going anywhere, Tasha said, voice high and tight. This is my home. Ma'am, with respect, your home has been compromised. Davis stepped inside without waiting for permission, the other 3 fanning out to check windows, closets, the fire escape. Whoever sent those messages knows your address, knows your schedule, probably knows how many locks are on your door and which ones actually work. Staying here makes you a sitting target. And going with you makes us what? Tasha stood, hands clenched at her sides. Hostages? Collateral? Protected. Davis met her gaze without flinching. Mr. Vega takes threats against civilians very seriously, especially civilians connected to people he cares about. Elena's stomach twisted. Where would you take us? Secure property, north side, armed guards. No one gets in or out without clearance. Davis pulled out his phone, showed Elena a photo of a modern townhouse behind iron gates. You'll have privacy, space, everything you need, and you'll be safe while Mr. Vega handles the situation. Handles it how? Elena demanded. That's above my pay grade, ma'am. Davis pocketed his phone. but I've worked for Mr. Vega for 8 years, and I've never seen him fail to neutralize a threat. If he says you're safe, you're safe. One of the other security guards emerged from Tasha's bedroom. Clear. No signs of forced entry, no surveillance devices, no immediate threats. Good. Davis turned back to Elena. Pack a bag, both of you. 3 days' worth of clothes, medications, toiletries, anything you can't live without. We leave in 10 minutes. I have to work, Elena started. Mr. Vega already contacted the hospital. You're on emergency medical leave as of this morning. Elena's breath caught. He can't just... He can, and he did. Davis's expression softened fractionally. Ms. Vale, I understand this is overwhelming, but right now, your safety is the priority. Everything else can wait. Tasha grabbed Elena's arm. We should call the police. And tell them what? Davis asked. That you received a threatening text? They'll file a report, maybe send a patrol car past once tonight, and then you're on your own. We're offering actual protection. From a crime lord's enemies. From people who want to hurt you to hurt him, yes. Davis didn't sugarcoat it. That's the reality. You can accept our help, or you can roll the dice and hope they're bluffing. Your choice. But make it fast. Elena looked at Tasha. Her best friend's face was pale, eyes wide with fear, and Elena realized with sick clarity that Tasha was only in danger because of her. Because Elena had danced with Lucien Vega, because she'd asked him for help, because she'd been selfish enough to want something good after months of drowning, and now Tasha might pay the price. We go, Elena said. Pack a bag, Tash, now. Elena. They know where you live, Elena's voice cracked. They threatened you by name. If something happens to you because I got involved with Lucien, I'll never forgive myself. So pack. Please. Tasha held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded and disappeared into her bedroom. Elena threw essentials into her backpack with shaking hands. Clothes, toiletries, phone charger, the $40,000 in cash she hadn't deposited yet because some paranoid part of her brain said keeping emergency money close was smart. She changed out of yesterday's clothes into fresh jeans and a hoodie, pulled her hair into a ponytail, and tried not to think about how her entire life had imploded in less than 48 hours. 10 minutes later, they were in a black SUV identical to the one that had picked Elena up from the hospital yesterday. Davis drove. 2 guards sat in the front row. Elena and Tasha squeezed into the back seat, hands clasped together so tightly Elena's fingers went numb. The townhouse was in Lincoln Park, tucked behind walls that looked decorative but were reinforced with steel. 2 more guards stood at the entrance, earpieces in, scanning every car that passed. Inside, the space was modern, impersonal, furniture that looked expensive but unlived in, art on the walls that suggested a decorator rather than an owner, everything too perfect to feel like home. Kitchen's fully stocked, Davis said, walking them through. Bedrooms upstairs, security monitors in the office, if you want to see the perimeter. Do not leave the property. Do not open the door for anyone except Mr. Vega or someone you recognize from the team. Questions? How long? Tasha asked. How long are we supposed to hide here? Until Mr. Vega resolves the threat. Davis checked his watch. Could be hours, could be days. Depends on how fast he moves. And what if he doesn't resolve it? Elena's voice came out hollow. What if whoever's threatening us decides we're not worth the trouble and just... They won't. Davis's certainty was absolute. Because Mr. Vega will make them understand that touching you would be the last mistake they ever make. And in this world, reputation matters. Once he makes an example, no one else will be stupid enough to try. The casual brutality of that statement made Elena's stomach turn. Davis left. The other guards took positions outside. And Elena and Tasha stood in a stranger's living room, prisoners of a war they didn't start, surrounded by luxury that felt like a cage. I need to call him, Elena said. Who? Lucien? Yes. Elena, no. I need to know what he's doing. Elena pulled out her phone. I need to hear his voice and know he's not... She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't say dying or getting hurt because of me or any of the terrible possibilities ricocheting through her brain. She dialed. Lucien answered on the second ring, and the relief that flooded Elena's system was so intense her knees went weak. Are you safe? He asked without preamble. Yes. Your people brought us to a townhouse. Tasha's here. We're both fine. Elena's throat tightened. Lucienne, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I'd known... Don't. His voice was hard. Don't apologize for something that's not your fault. This is on Marcus, and whoever he's working with, and me for not seeing the threat sooner. What are you going to do? Silence. Then, what I should have done months ago when I first suspected the leak. I'm calling a meeting. Every captain, every lieutenant, everyone who has authority in my organization. And I'm going to present evidence that Marcus betrayed us all, not just me. Then I'm going to let them vote on his punishment. Elena's breath caught. Vote? Democracy has its uses, even in my world. Lucian's tone carried dark amusement. If my people decide Marcus deserves mercy, I'll grant it. If they decide he deserves something harsher, I'll grant that too. And the people threatening me and Tasha, they're contractors. Hired muscle Marcus used to try intimidating me into backing off the investigation. I have names now, thanks to some very persuasive questioning. Something cold entered Lucien's voice. They'll be handled before nightfall. Handled. That word again. Elena was starting to hate it. I want to be there, she said. Absolutely not. Not at the meeting with Marcus. Elena swallowed hard. When you confront the people threatening us, I want to see their faces. I want them to know I'm not some helpless victim they can use to control you. Elena, Lucien's voice softened dangerously. These are not people you negotiate with. They're animals who take money to hurt civilians. Putting you in the same room with them is non-negotiable, Elena interrupted, using his own phrase. You told me I'm already a target, that walking away doesn't change that. So stop protecting me from reality and let me stand beside you when you make them understand they picked the wrong woman to threaten. More silence. Elena could almost hear Lucian thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. You stay behind me, he said finally. You don't speak unless I tell you to. And if things go bad, if I even suspect they might, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. You run and let my people get you out. Understood? Understood. I'll send Davis back for you at 6. Lucien exhaled slowly. And Elena? Thank you. For what? For trusting me to fix this. For not running when you had every reason to. His voice dropped lower. For making me want to be better than I am. The confession made Elena's chest ache. Don't get hurt. I'll try. The line went dead. Elena lowered the phone to find Tasha staring at her with horror. You're going with him, Tasha said flatly. To confront armed criminals who threaten to kill us. Yes. Have you lost your goddamn mind? Probably. Elena sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. But I'm tired of hiding, Tash. Tired of being scared. Tired of letting other people control my life because I'm too powerless to fight back. This isn't fighting back. This is suicide. Then it's my choice to make. Tasha's eyes welled up. If something happens to you, it won't. Elena pulled her friend into a hug. Lucien won't let it. And for better or worse, I believe that. They spent the afternoon in tense silence. Tasha stress-cooked in the townhouse's immaculate kitchen, producing pasta and garlic bread that neither of them could eat. Elena paced, checked her phone obsessively, and tried not to imagine all the ways tonight could go wrong. At 5:30, she showered and changed into dark clothes, jeans, black sweater, boots that let her move fast if necessary. Tasha watched her prepare with the expression of someone watching a friend march toward execution. Promise me something, Tasha said. What? If you survive tonight, you end this. You walk away from Lucien Vega and his world and you never look back. Elena met her friend's eyes. I can't promise that. Why not? Because... Elena stopped, trying to find words for something she barely understood herself. Because he sees me, Tasha. Not who I was before Garrett. Not who I'm trying to be. Just me. All the broken, angry, exhausted parts. And he doesn't want to fix them. He just wants to stand beside me while I fix myself. That's not love. That's... I know what it is. Elena's voice was quiet. And I'm choosing it anyway. Davis arrived at 6 o'clock exactly. Elena kissed Tasha's cheek, promised to call the moment it was over, and climbed into the SUV before her courage failed. The drive took 40 minutes, heading south toward industrial areas where streetlights flickered and buildings wore graffiti like battle scars. The SUV finally stopped outside a warehouse that looked abandoned. Broken windows, rusted doors, the kind of place horror movies used for murder scenes. But lights glowed inside, and expensive cars lined the street, sleek and dark and completely out of place in this neighborhood. "Mr. Vega's already inside," Davis said, opening Elena's door. "Stay close to me. Don't wander. Don't talk to anyone unless they address you directly. And remember, you're here as a witness, not a participant." Elena nodded, mouth too dry to speak. They entered through a side door that required a key card. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed into something functional. Concrete floors swept clean, industrial lights hanging from exposed beams, and in the center of the space, a circle of folding chairs occupied by men in expensive suits who looked like they ran corporations instead of criminal enterprises. Lucien stood at the circle's center, dressed in all black, injured arm still bandaged, but otherwise radiating the same controlled danger Elena remembered from the nightclub. When he saw her, something flickered across his face, relief, maybe, or concern, but he didn't move toward her. Davis guided Elena to a spot against the wall, far enough from the circle to be out of immediate danger, close enough to see and hear everything. "We're waiting on one more," Lucien said, voice carrying through the cavernous space. 2 minutes later, the main doors opened. Marcus Vega walked in, flanked by 2 guards, hands zip-tied in front of him, face bruised but defiant. He looked like Lucien, same dark eyes, same sharp features, but where Lucien carried himself with cold control, Marcus radiated desperate anger. "You're making a mistake, cousin," Marcus said as the guards forced him into the center of the circle. "Am I?" Lucien's tone was conversational, almost pleasant. "Explain. This is a setup. Whatever evidence you think you have, I don't think I have evidence." Lucien pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, and projected images onto the warehouse wall via a portable projector. Bank records, wire transfers, emails with redacted recipients. "I know I have evidence. 18 separate payments from an FBI account to your offshore holdings. 12 recorded phone calls where you gave detailed information about shipment routes, personnel, and timing. And this morning, a signed confession from the men you hired to kill me, stating explicitly that you paid them $50,000 to make it look like a home invasion gone wrong. The room went silent. Every man in that circle turned to stare at Marcus, and the weight of their collective judgment was palpable. "You've been feeding information to federal agents for 6 months, Lucien continued, voice still eerily calm, trading our secrets for immunity from prosecution. And when I started investigating the leak, you panicked and tried to have me killed before I could expose you." Marcus's face went pale. "They were going to arrest me. They had evidence of the Phoenix deal, and they said if I didn't cooperate, so you sold out everyone in this room to save yourself." Lucien gestured at the circle. "Men who trusted you, who worked with you, who considered you family. You would have done the same." "No, Marcus. I would have come to me. I would have let my cousin, my blood, help me find a solution that didn't involve betraying everyone we built together." Lucien's control finally cracked, and for the first time, Elena heard real pain in his voice. "I would have protected you, the way I've always protected you, the way family is supposed to." Marcus's defiance crumbled. "Lucien, please. You tried to have me killed." Lucien stepped closer, and the temperature in the warehouse seemed to drop. "In my own home, while I was having dinner with someone I care about, someone innocent, someone who has nothing to do with this world, except that I brought her into it." Elena's breath caught. Every eye in the warehouse turned toward her, assessing, calculating, and she forced herself to stand still under their scrutiny. "Which brings us to tonight's second problem," Lucien said, pulling out his phone. "This morning, Elena received threats. Photos of her entering my building, messages saying she'd be hurt if I didn't back off, and threats against her friend, a civilian nurse who's never done anything except let Elena sleep on her couch after a divorce." He showed the messages to the men in the circle. Anger rippled through them. Genuine anger, Elena realized, not just for show. Because whatever these men did, whatever crimes they committed, threatening uninvolved women crossed a line even they respected. "The men who sent those messages are contractors," Lucien and continued. Bobby Reeves and James Chen. Hired muscle Marcus used because he knew my own people wouldn't touch a job like this. They're in the back room now, waiting for me to decide what happens to them. One of the suited men spoke up, older, gray-haired, with the bearing of someone used to authority. "What do you want from us, Lucien?" "Justice." Lucien met his gaze. "I want you to vote on what Marcus deserves, and I want you to vote on what happens to the contractors who threatened Elena. Because this isn't just about me anymore. It's about whether we're an organization that protects our own or whether we're animals who let fear turn us into traitors." "You want us to vote on your cousin's life," another man said. "That's cold, even for you." "It's fair," Lucien's voice hardened. "If you think Marcus deserves a second chance, vote for exile. He leaves Chicago tonight with nothing but his life, and we never speak his name again. If you think his betrayal goes deeper, if you think he's forfeited the right to mercy, vote for permanent consequences. And whatever you decide, I'll abide by it." Silence filled the warehouse. Then the gray-haired man stood. "I vote exile," he said. "Marcus is a coward and a traitor, but he's still blood. Banish him. Make him live with what he's done." One by one, the others stood and cast their votes. Some said exile. Others said harsher words Elena didn't want to translate. When the final count came in, exile won by 2 votes. Marcus collapsed to his knees, sobbing. "Thank you. Thank you. I swear You'll leave Chicago by dawn," Lucien interrupted. "If you're still here when the sun rises, the vote becomes irrelevant and I handle you personally. Understood?" Marcus nodded frantically. "Get him out of my sight," Lucien told the guards. They dragged Marcus toward the exit. As he passed Elena, he looked at her with such hatred that she stepped back instinctively. Davis moved between them, hand on his concealed weapon, and Marcus kept walking. The warehouse door slammed shut. "Now," Lucien said, voice dropping into something colder than ice. "The contractors." He walked toward the back of the warehouse. The circle of men followed. Elena hesitated, then moved after them, Davis shadowing her every step. The back room was smaller, concrete walls and a single hanging bulb that cast harsh shadows. 2 men sat bound to chairs, mid-30s, built like fighters, faces already showing signs of interrogation. One had a split lip. The other's eye was swollen shut. Bobby Reeves and James Chen, Elena assumed. They looked up when Lucien entered, and the fear in their expressions was primal. "Gentlemen," Lucien said pleasantly, "thank you for waiting." "We already told you everything," Bobby said, words slurring through his damaged mouth. "Marcus hired us. We sent the messages. We didn't know the woman was important, but you know now." Lucien crouched in front of Bobby's chair, bringing them to eye level. "And here's what I need you to understand. That woman," he gestured back toward Elena, "matters more to me than anything in this warehouse, including you, including your partner, including every dollar in my organization's accounts. She matters, and you threatened her. So now we're going to discuss consequences." "We'll leave town," James said desperately. "Tonight. You'll never see us again." "True." Lucien stood. "But that doesn't send the message I need sent." He turned to Elena. "Come here." Elena's heart lurched. Every instinct screamed to stay put, to hide behind Davis, to be anywhere but in that concrete room with 2 terrified men and Lucien's cold fury filling the space like poison gas. But she moved forward anyway. 1 step, then another, until she stood beside Lucien, close enough to smell the blood and sweat and fear radiating from the contractors. "Look at them," Lucien said quietly. "Really look." Elena forced herself to meet Bobby's eyes, then James's. They looked back with desperate animal panic. "These men threatened to kill you," Lucien continued, voice still eerily calm. "They researched your life, found your vulnerabilities, and decided you were acceptable collateral damage in whatever game Marcus was playing. Do you understand what that means?" "Yes," Elena whispered. "Then tell me what they deserve." The question hit like a physical blow. Elena's breath stopped. She looked at Lucien, searching his face for some indication this was a test, a lesson, anything except what it seemed to be. But his expression was serious, patient, waiting for her answer. "I don't..." Elena's voice cracked. "I can't." "You can." Lucien's hand found the small of her back, steadying. "I'm giving you the choice, Elena. Exile. like Marcus, or something permanent. What do they deserve for threatening you? For threatening Tasha? For making you afraid in your own city? Elena's hands shook. This was insane. She was a nurse. She saved lives, didn't decide when they ended. She wouldn't. They were just doing a job, she heard herself say. They didn't know. They knew enough. Lucien's tone hardened. They knew you were a civilian. They knew threatening you would hurt me. They chose to take that job anyway because the money was good, and they didn't think about consequences. So I'm asking you again, what do they deserve? Bobby was crying now, silent tears running down his bruised face. James just stared at Elena like she was his last hope of salvation. And Elena realized with sick clarity that Lucien wasn't just asking her to pass judgment. He was asking her to become someone who could, someone who belonged in his world, someone hard enough to make impossible choices and live with the aftermath. Exile, Elena said, voice barely audible. Let them go. Make them understand they're only alive because of mercy, not weakness, and make sure everyone knows that threatening me again means no more chances. Lucien studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once and turned back to the contractors. You heard her, he said. You have until dawn to leave Chicago. If I see you after that, if I even hear rumors you're still in Illinois, what happens next won't be quick or merciful. Understood? Both men nodded frantically. Cut them loose, Lucien told the guards. Give them enough cash for gas and one night in a motel. Then make sure they understand I have eyes everywhere. The guards moved to comply. Elena stepped back, legs unsteady, and let Davis guide her out of the room before she could process what she'd just done. The warehouse was clearing out now, the circle of suited men dispersing into the night like shadows. Lucien spoke briefly with the gray-haired man, then walked toward Elena with purpose. You did well, he said. I feel sick. That's normal. Lucien's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You just learned what it means to have power in this world. It never feels good the first time. Will there be a second time? I hope not. His expression softened. But if there is, you'll be stronger for it. Elena wanted to believe that. Wanted to think she could be the kind of woman who made life and death choices and still slept at night. But right now, all she felt was hollow. Take me back to Tasha, she said. Soon. Lucien glanced at his watch. First, there's one more thing. He led her out of the warehouse into the parking lot where his SUV waited. But instead of getting in, Lucien opened the trunk and pulled out a small box, glossy black, tied with silver ribbon. What's this? Elena asked. A promise. Lucien handed her the box. Open it. Elena untied the ribbon with shaking fingers, lifted the lid, and found a key inside. Not a car key. A house key, brass and new, attached to a keychain engraved with an address in Lincoln Park. The townhouse, Lucien said quietly. It's yours now. Deed in your name, property taxes paid for the next 5 years, security system already installed. You and Tasha can stay there as long as you need, or you can sell it and use the money for whatever life you want to build. No strings, no expectations, just yours. Elena stared at the key, throat closing. I can't accept this. Why not? Because it's too much, because I didn't earn it, because... Is it because you're scared it makes you dependent on me? Lucien's hand closed over hers, key trapped between their palms. I understand that fear, Elena, but this isn't about control. It's about making sure you're safe, that you have options, that you never have to choose between your pride and your survival. Tears burned Elena's eyes. What do you want from me? Everything. Lucien's honesty was brutal. Your time, your trust, your heart, if you'll give it. But I want you to choose that freely, not because you need me to survive. So take the house, take the security, take everything I'm offering, and then decide if what we have is worth keeping. Elena's vision blurred. She looked at the key, at Lucien's scarred and bandaged hand holding hers, and made a choice that would change everything. She closed her fingers around the key. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Lucien pulled her into his arms, and Elena buried her face in his chest and finally let herself cry. Not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming reality that for the first time in months, maybe years, she wasn't drowning anymore. She was choosing her own life. And that life included a dangerous man who saw her clearly and wanted her anyway. Dawn broke over Chicago, cold and gray, the kind of morning that made the city look tired. Elena stood at the townhouse window watching sunrise bleed through clouds, the key to her new home heavy in her palm. Behind her, Tasha slept curled on the couch, exhausted from a night of waiting and worrying and finally accepting that Elena had survived. Elena hadn't slept at all. She kept replaying this warehouse. Bobby Reeves's tears, James Chen's desperate eyes, the weight of Lucian's hand on her back while she decided whether two men lived or died. She'd chosen mercy, but the choice itself had changed something fundamental inside her. She'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross, become someone who could look at human beings and calculate their worth in terms of threat and consequence. The woman who'd walked into that nightclub 4 days ago, broken, angry, desperate, wouldn't recognize who Elena was becoming. And the terrifying part was that Elena wasn't sure she minded. Her phone buzzed. Text from Lucian. Marcus left Chicago at 4 a.m. Contractors followed 30 minutes later. You're clear, Elena typed back. Thank you. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, can I see you today? Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to say yes, wanted to fall into whatever this thing between them was becoming and stop questioning whether it was healthy or sustainable or anything except necessary. But she also knew that saying yes meant stepping fully into Lucian's world, accepting everything that came with it, the violence, the danger, the constant calculation of risk versus reward. She needed to think, needed space to process what she'd done, what she'd become, what she wanted from a life that suddenly had options again. Not today, she typed. I need time. The response came immediately. I understand. Call me when you're ready. Elena set down her phone and turned to find Tasha awake, watching her with bloodshot eyes. He texted you, Tasha said. Not a question. Marcus is gone. The contractors are gone. We're safe. For now. Tasha sat up, running hands through her hair. Until the next threat. The next rival. The next time someone decides hurting you is a good way to hurt him. I know. Do you? Tasha's voice cracked. Because from where I'm sitting, you just got handed $1 million townhouse and a promise of protection, and you're acting like that's a happy ending instead of a cage. Elena sank into the armchair across from her. It's not a cage. Then what is it? A choice. Elena met her friend's eyes. For the first time in months, I have actual choices, Tash. I can stay in Chicago or leave. I can keep this house or sell it. I can see Lucien again or walk away. And yeah, maybe every choice comes with consequences and complications, but at least they're mine to make. Those aren't real choices when one of them gets you killed. Maybe not. Elena's laugh came out hollow. But I spent 3 months after the divorce feeling powerless, drowning in debt I didn't create, sleeping on your couch because I couldn't afford a security deposit, working myself to exhaustion just to survive. And then Lucy Zien showed up and gave me my life back, and yeah, it came with strings and danger and moral compromises I never thought I'd make. But I'm not powerless anymore. Tasha's expression softened. You were never powerless, Elena. You were just beaten down. There's a difference. Feels the same when you're living it. I know. Tasha leaned forward, elbows on her knees. But here's what I need you to hear. That man is dangerous. Not because he hurts you intentionally, but because his world is violent and unpredictable, and being close to him means accepting that violence as normal. And I'm terrified you're going to wake up one day and realize you've become someone you don't recognize. What if I already have? Elena whispered. What if standing in that warehouse last night, deciding whether those men lived or died, what if that's who I am now? Someone hard enough to make those choices? Then you're lost. Tasha's eyes welled up. And I don't know how to save you. The words hung between them like a chasm. Elena wanted to argue, to explain that she wasn't lost, just changing, evolving into someone stronger than the woman Garrett had tried to destroy. But looking at Tasha's face, seeing genuine fear for her soul, not just her safety, Elena felt something crack in her chest. I'm going back to work tomorrow, Elena said quietly. Resume my shifts at the hospital. Get back to saving lives instead of deciding who deserves them. And I'm going to take a week before I see Lucien again. A week to figure out if what I felt in that warehouse was temporary insanity or permanent transformation. And if it's permanent, then I'll deal with it. Elena stood, suddenly exhausted. But I'm not making any more life-altering decisions until I've slept for 12 hours and remembered what normal feels like. She went upstairs to one of the townhouse bedrooms. King bed, luxury linens, everything impersonal and perfect, and collapsed fully clothed onto the mattress. Sleep came fast and dreamless, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion her mind couldn't process. When Elena woke, golden afternoon light streamed through the windows and her phone showed 3:15 p.m. 14 hours of sleep. Her body felt like she'd been hit by a truck, but her head was clearer than it had been in days. Downstairs, Tasha had cooked again, grilled cheese and tomato soup, comfort food that made the townhouse smell like home despite its sterile perfection. They ate in the kitchen without talking much, both processing the last 4 days in their own way. I'm going back to my apartment tonight, Tasha said finally. Get some of my actual things. Make sure it's still standing. Is that safe? Davis already checked it this morning. No signs of surveillance or break-in. And honestly, I need my own space for a night. This place is beautiful, but it feels like living in a showroom. Elena understood. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. They drove to Pilsen as the sun set, Chicago's skyline silhouetted against orange and purple clouds. Tasha's apartment looked exactly the same, cramped, lived in, real in a way the Lincoln Park townhouse would never be. Elena helped her pack a bag of essentials, then they sat on the familiar couch where Elena had slept for a month and talked like they used to before Lucien Vega crashed into her life. Do you love him? Tasha asked eventually. Elena's breath caught. I don't know. It's too fast, too intense, too tangled up with everything else to know what's real and what's just trauma bonding. But you feel something. Yeah. Elena traced patterns on the couch cushion. I feel like he sees me in a way no one else ever has. Not idealized, not diminished, just seen. All the broken parts and sharp edges and exhausted determination. And instead of trying to fix me or change me, he just wants to stand beside me while I figure my shit out. That's not nothing. No, it's not. Elena met her friend's eyes. But I also know that what I feel might be gratitude dressed up as attraction, or the high of being valued after months of feeling worthless, and I need to figure out which before I let this go any further. Smart. Tasha squeezed her hand. Scary smart, actually. Most people would just dive in and deal with consequences later. I'm tired of consequences I didn't choose. Elena's voice was quiet. So this time, I'm choosing carefully. They stayed until midnight, then drove back to Lincoln Park in comfortable silence. Tasha went to bed in the guest room. Elena lay awake in her own room, in her house, with her name on the deed, and tried to process the surreal reality that 48 hours ago she was sleeping on a couch, and now she owned property in one of Chicago's wealthiest neighborhoods. None of it felt real. The next morning, Elena returned to Northwestern Memorial like she'd never left. The ER swallowed her whole the way it always did. Trauma codes, overdoses, a diabetic in crisis, a car accident victim with internal bleeding. Elena worked on autopilot, her hands remembering procedures her brain didn't have to think about. And for 8 hours, she was just a nurse again. Not someone connected to Chicago's underworld. Not someone who'd decided whether men lived or died. Just Elena Vale, ER nurse, saving lives because that's what she did. It felt like coming home. During her lunch break, she found a quiet corner and pulled out her phone. Lucien's last message was still there. Call me when you're ready. Was she ready? Elena didn't know. But she also knew that avoiding him forever wasn't fair to either of them. She called. He answered immediately. Elena. Just her name, but the way he said it made her chest tighten. Hi. How are you? Tired, confused, back at work. Elena leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. How's your arm? Healing. How's your conscience? The blunt question surprised a laugh out of her. You don't pull punches, do you? Not with you. Lucien's voice softened. I need to know you're okay, Elena. That what happened in the warehouse didn't break something inside you. I don't know if I'm okay. Elena's honesty was brutal. I keep replaying it, wondering if I made the right choice, wondering what kind of person I'm becoming if I can make choices like that at all. A survivor. Lucian's certainty was absolute. You're becoming someone who understands that the world isn't fair, but you can still choose mercy when mercy is an option. That's not weakness, Elena. That's strength. Or moral compromise. Maybe both. She heard him exhale slowly. Listen, I know you need space. I understand that. But I also need to see you, not for anything heavy, just coffee, a walk, something normal. Can you give me that? Elena's throat tightened. When? Tonight, if you're off shift. Tomorrow, if not. Whenever you're ready. I'm off at 6. The words came out before Elena could second-guess them. There's a coffee shop on Diversey, The Grind. Meet me there at 7? I'll be there. The call ended. Elena sat with her phone in her hands, pulse racing, wondering if she'd just made a brilliant decision or a catastrophic mistake. At 6:15, she clocked out, changed into street clothes in the locker room, and drove to The Grind with her stomach in knots. The coffee shop was busy. Students with laptops, couples on dates, the normal chaos of people living normal lives. Elena ordered a latte and claimed a corner table where she could see the door. Lucien arrived at 7 exactly. He looked different in daylight, still dangerous, still carrying himself with that fluid control, but somehow more human. He wore dark jeans and a leather jacket over a gray Henley, his injured arm hidden beneath fabric, and when he saw Elena, genuine relief crossed his face. He ordered black coffee, then slid into the chair across from her. For a moment, they just looked at each other. "You look good," Lucien said finally. "You look tired. Haven't been sleeping much." He sipped his coffee. Lot to clean up after Marcus, territory to redistribute, people to reassure, the usual aftermath of betrayal. "Did you—" Elena stopped, not sure how to ask. "Is he really gone?" "Got confirmation this morning. Marcus crossed into Canada 6 hours ago. He won't be back." Lucien's expression was carefully neutral. "My cousin made his choice. Now he lives with it." "Do you miss him?" "I miss who I thought he was." Lucien's voice was quiet. "The man I trusted for 15 years. But that man was probably never real, just a performance he maintained until the pressure got too high." Elena understood that. "Garrett was like that. I thought I knew him, thought we had something real. Then the mask came off and I realized I'd been in love with a fiction." "Is that what you think about me?" Lucien met her eyes. "That I'm a fiction you'll eventually see through?" "I think you're complicated." Elena chose her words carefully. "I think you're capable of terrible things, but you draw lines other people in your world don't. I think you're damaged and dangerous, and probably not good for me in any conventional sense. But I also think you're honest about what you are, and there's something refreshing about that." Refreshing. Lucien's mouth curved slightly. Not the word I expected. "What did you expect?" "Terrifying. Overwhelming. Run while you still can." "Those two." Elena's smile was sad. "But I'm tired of running, Lucy Yen. I spent 3 months running from debt and shame and the feeling that my life was over. And then you showed up and gave me reasons to stop. So now I'm here, drinking coffee with a crime lord, trying to figure out if what we have is real or just trauma bonding and proximity." "What do you think it is?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, watching him. Really watching. The way his hands wrapped around his coffee mug with careful control. The way his eyes tracked movement in the coffee shop, always aware of exits and threats. The way he looked at her like she was something rare he was afraid to break. "I think it's real," she said finally. "But I also think it's too fast. We met 4 days ago, Lucien. 4 days. Normal people don't build sustainable relationships in 4 days. We're not normal people." "No, we're not." Elena's laugh came out brittle. "But that doesn't mean we should pretend normal rules don't apply. I need time, space, a chance to figure out who I am outside of crisis mode before I decide if I can handle being with someone whose life is a permanent crisis." Pain flickered across Lucien's face. "You're ending this." "I'm pausing it." Elena reached across the table, fingers brushing his. "I'm saying I care about you, that what we have matters. But I need to stand on my own 2 feet before I lean on someone else, even someone as steady as you." "How long?" "I don't know. Weeks? Maybe months?" Elena's throat tightened. I need to finish my nurse practitioner program, find my own apartment, build a life that's mine, not just the aftermath of Garrett or the gift from you. And then, if you're still interested, we can see what this becomes." Lucien was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay. Okay? I'll wait." His hand turned over, palm up, inviting. Elena laced her fingers through his. "I'll wait as long as it takes for you to be sure. Because you're right. This is too fast, too intense, and I don't want you choosing me because I saved you. I want you choosing me because I'm worth having in your life when you don't need saving." Elena's vision blurred. "What if I decide I can't do it? Can't handle your world? Then I'll be devastated." Lucien's honesty was brutal. "But I'll understand, and I'll make sure you stay safe, even if you're not mine." "That's not fair to you." "Life's not fair, Elena. But we make the best choices we can with what we're given." Lucien squeezed her hand. "So take your time, build your life, and know that whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." They sat like that for a while, hands linked across the coffee shop table, while normal people lived normal lives around them. Eventually, Lucien stood to leave. He kissed her forehead, gentle, lingering, a promise without words, and walked out into the Chicago evening. Elena sat alone with her coffee, tears running down her face, and felt something inside her settle into place. The next 3 months passed in a blur of deliberate routine. Elena moved into a studio apartment in Andersonville. Nothing fancy, but hers, with her name on the lease and rent she could afford from her nursing salary. She enrolled in 2 classes toward her nurse practitioner certification. She worked her shifts at Northwestern Memorial and slowly paid off the last of Garrett's debts with money from the briefcase. She sold the Lincoln Park townhouse. It felt wrong keeping it, like accepting payment for something she couldn't name. So Elena sold it for market value, put half the money into savings, and donated the other half to a women's shelter that helped domestic abuse survivors rebuild their lives. Lucien sent her a text when he found out. "That was a good thing you did?" Elena sent back, "Learned it from you." They didn't see each other. Elena had asked for space, and Lucien respected it absolutely, though sometimes she caught glimpses of his security people at a distance. Davis outside her building, another guard at the hospital parking lot. Protection without presence. Lucien making sure she stayed safe, even when he stayed away. Tasha moved into the Andersonville apartment's 2nd bedroom. They rebuilt their friendship slowly, carefully, and when Tasha finally asked if Elena still thought about him, Elena's answer was honest. "Every day." "Are you going to call him?" "When I'm ready." "When's that?" Elena didn't know. She was building a life that felt solid and real in hers, but she also felt Lucien's absence like a missing piece. She'd catch herself reaching for her phone to share some observation or story, then remember they weren't doing that anymore. She'd lie awake at night wondering if he thought about her with the same obsessive frequency she thought about him. On a Tuesday in late November, Elena's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Elena Vale?" A woman's voice. Professional, warm. "Yes?" "My name is Sophia Martinez. I run the women's shelter you donated to 3 months ago." A pause. "I wanted to thank you personally. Your donation funded 6 months of operating costs and helped us expand our housing program. You saved lives, Ms. Vale. Real lives. And I thought you should know that." Elena's throat closed. "I'm glad I could help." "There's one more thing." Sophia's voice gentled. "A man came by yesterday. Tall, well-dressed. Wouldn't give his name. He said you'd inspired him to do better, and he wanted to make a matching donation. Anonymous. Enough to fund the shelter for 2 years. Elena's breath caught. "Did he say anything else?" "Just that he hoped you were happy. That you'd built the life you deserved." Sophia paused. "He cared about you, Ms. Vale. Very much. I could see it." The call ended. Elena sat in her apartment, tears streaming down her face, and finally understood what she needed to do. She texted Lucien. "Can we talk?" His response was immediate. "Yes." "When?" "Tonight. The coffee shop. Same time I'll be there." Elena dressed carefully. Nothing fancy, just jeans and a sweater that made her feel confident. She arrived at the grind early, claimed the same corner table, and waited. Lucien walked in at 7 exactly, and Elena's heart stuttered. He looked good, Tired, maybe, with new lines around his eyes, but good. He saw her, and something in his expression cracked open. Hope and fear and desperate restraint all at once. He sat across from her. Hi. Hi. Elena's hands shook around her coffee. I heard about the shelter. Sophia has a big mouth. She has a grateful heart. Elena met his eyes. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Lucien's voice was quiet. You showed me what it looks like to turn pain into purpose, to take money earned from darkness and use it to fund light. I wanted to try doing the same. Is it working? Ask me in a few years. Lucien's smile was sad. I'm trying, Elena. Legitimizing more of the business. Shutting down operations that cross lines I'm not comfortable with anymore. It's slow, messy, probably impossible to do completely, but I'm trying. Because of me. Because of you, because of Sophia, because I'm tired of being who I was, and I want to see if I can be someone better. Elena's chest ached. I missed you. I missed you too. Lucien's hand reached across the table, palm up, waiting. Every single day. Elena took his hand. I'm not finished rebuilding yet. I'm still in school, still working on my own issues, still figuring out who I want to be. I know. But I also know that trying to do it without you feels like trying to breathe with only one lung. Possible, but exhausting, and never quite enough. Elena's voice cracked. So I'm asking, can we try this? Slowly, carefully, with both of us choosing it every day. Yes. Lucien's grip tightened. Yes, Elena. Whatever speed you need. Whatever boundaries you want. Just yes. They left the coffee shop hand in hand and walked through Chicago's winter streets while the city glittered around them. No destination, no plan, just walking together because being together was enough. Tell me about your classes, Lucian said. So Elena did. She talked about pathophysiology and pharmacology and the terror of clinical rotations where she had to diagnose patients under supervision. She talked about her patients at Northwestern Memorial, the ones she saved and the ones she lost. She talked about Tasha's new girlfriend and the apartment renovation they were planning. Lucien listened like every word mattered. Your turn, Elena said. Tell me about your empire. So he did. He talked about consolidating territory, about the legitimate businesses he was expanding, about the delicate balance of transitioning from illegal operations to legal ones without losing control. He talked about his people, the ones who stayed loyal after Marcus's betrayal, and the new ones he was slowly learning to trust. Elena listened without judgment. They walked for 2 hours until Elena's fingers were numb from cold, and Lucien's breath formed clouds in the freezing air. Finally, they stopped outside her apartment building. I should go in, Elena said. I know. Will you call me tomorrow? If you want me to. I want you to. Elena rose on her toes, kissed him softly. I want all of it, Lucien. The coffee dates and the late-night phone calls and the slow build of something real. I'm ready for that now. Are you sure? Completely. Elena smiled. You gave me my life back. Now I'm choosing to share it with you. That's the difference. Lucien kissed her again, deeper this time, and Elena felt the last piece of broken inside her click into place. Not healed. Healing was a process, not a destination, but whole enough, strong enough, ready enough. 1 year later, Elena graduated from her nurse practitioner program with Tasha and Lucien both cheering in the audience. She started working at a community health clinic that served underserved populations, using her skills to help people who couldn't afford traditional health care. Lucien continued legitimizing his businesses, slowly shifting wealth from criminal enterprises into real estate development, import logistics, and venture capital. He was never fully clean. Some stains didn't wash out, but he was better, cleaner. The kind of man who could walk into Sophia's women's shelter and know he'd helped build it, instead of creating the trauma that filled it. Elena kept her apartment in Andersonville. Lucien kept his penthouse in Gold Coast. They split time between both, building a relationship that honored independence while celebrating partnership. On a rainy Tuesday that reminded Elena of the night they met, Lucien knocked on her apartment door carrying takeout and a smile. Rough day? He asked, reading her exhaustion immediately. Lost a patient. Elena's voice was hollow. Overdose, 20 years old. I couldn't save her. Lucien pulled her into his arms without words, just holding her while she cried. When the tears stopped, he made her tea, ordered her into comfortable clothes, and they sat on her couch eating pad thai while rain hammered the windows. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked. "Helping me that night in the club." "Never." Lucien's answer was immediate. "Do you regret dancing with me?" Elena thought about everything that had happened, the violence, the danger, the warehouse and the choices, and the permanent transformation of who she was. She thought about the woman she'd been, broken by divorce, drowning in debt, convinced her life was over. Then she looked at who she'd become. Strong, independent, someone who saved lives and made hard choices and loved a complicated man who was trying to be better. "No," Elena said, "I don't regret any of it." "Even the scary parts?" "Especially the scary parts." Elena leaned into him. "They taught me I could survive anything, that I was stronger than I thought, and that love doesn't have to be safe to be real." Lucien kissed her temple. "You're remarkable, you know that? I'm a work in progress." "Aren't we all?" They sat like that while rain turned Chicago's streets into rivers, and the city lights blurred into watercolor. Elena closed her eyes and listened to Lucien's heartbeat, steady and sure, and felt gratitude for every choice that led her here. She'd walked into a nightclub 365 days ago believing her life was over. Instead, she'd found a stranger who saw her clearly, challenged her to be stronger, and gave her the tools to rebuild herself from rubble into something beautiful. She'd asked him for one dance. He'd given her a future. And every morning when Elena woke up, whether in her apartment or his penthouse or someday in a home they'd build together, she chose that future again. Chose him. Chose the life they were building one careful, complicated, perfectly imperfect day at a time. Because some love stories started with fairy tales and happily ever afters. And some started with broken people finding each other in the dark and deciding that broken was okay, as long as they were broken together. Elena and Lucien's story was the second kind, and that made it real.